Good evening. Welcome to the September 9th edition of the Downers Grove Village Council meeting. There are copies of the agenda available on the counters to the audience's right if you want to follow along. And as is our custom, we'll begin this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Tully,
Here.
Commissioner Davenport,
Here.
Commissioner Sarver,
Here.
Commissioner Rowe.
Here.
Welcome, everyone. We have a motion allowing electronic participation.
Mayor, I move to allow electronic participation for the September 9th, 2025 Village Council meeting as presented.
Second.
Any comments from the council? Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Early.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Welcome, Leslie and Martin from the cloud. You guys hear us just fine?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda tonight is proclamations. For those that follow our meetings, proclamations are an opportunity for the mayor typically to issue some sort of a statement to try and highlight something or bring awareness to a cause or celebrate people or times or places. And we have one this evening for National Preparedness Month. That's one we've done in the past. It's related to a program that FEMA runs every year. But before I do that, I want to read a little bit of a story. This is a true story from Downers Grove, but you'll see how it ties in pretty tightly. So bear with me. This is called A Cautionary Tale. 2 days ago, a sign from the village was hung on our front door informing us our water was to be turned off yesterday due to some pipe repair down the street. No big deal. After a few hours, our water returned. We noticed the sign was still hanging on the front door of the house of our neighbor, an elderly widow across the street. We texted her in the morning to let her know about the shutoff, no response. Later in the afternoon, we noticed a tradesman's van in the driveway that left very quickly. We noticed the sign was still on the door. We went to the house and rang the bell, no answer, and the tradesman's business card was wedged into the door. We then contacted our next door neighbor to see if she had heard anything recently from the widow. Nada. So she, her husband, and I walked around the house, but the blinds were closed in every window. Now, the widow has only one daughter who lives out of state. Neither the next door neighbor nor we had her contact info, so we began an internet search for her phone number. Any phone number we tried was unsuccessful. Eventually, we found an email address for the daughter's husband. So we emailed him a quick summary of the situation, asking his wife to contact me at my phone number. Luckily, he must monitor his email since she did call me. She provided me with the garage door code, and with great trepidation, the next door neighbor and I entered the house. We found the widow flat on her back on the floor, papers and furniture askew. She was alert, recognized us, talked to us, but occasionally lapsed into off-the-wall topics. We called 911. While waiting for the responders, I noticed the stove burner was on. I shut it off. Whatever was cooking was now carbonized. We have no idea how long she was on the floor. She wasn't coherent enough to give us a firm answer. It may have been hours. It may have been days. We followed the ambulance to the ER, and we're happy to report that it appears, at least as of now, that she has not suffered any major injuries, picking her daughter up from the airport later today. The purpose of this narrative is twofold. If you live alone, establish some sort of daily signal with a relative, close friend, or neighbor that you are okay, whether it's a phone call, a text, or a signal such as opening and closing a blind each morning. Share your next of kin information with your neighbors or those you're comfortable with. Keep an eye on your neighbors who may be alone. Be aware of any subtle signals that something might be wrong. If something doesn't seem right, act on it. It's better to be safe than sorry. If it wasn't for the water shutoff notice, our own intuition, and the internet, there may have been a completely different outcome. That's a true story from Downers Grove. And some of the good news of that is that obviously it had a decent ending. But it ties a little bit into preparedness, the idea of making a plan. Having a plan is a better time to make it than when you need it later. And so with that, I'm going to read National Preparedness Month proclamation, and I hope that people will give that a little bit of thought, as well as some of the thoughts that are in this proclamation. Whereas National Preparedness Month is an observance each September which is designed to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for disasters and emergencies that could happen at any time. Whereas residents of the Village of Downers Grove are not immune to health emergencies, tornadoes, floods, power outages, heat waves, deep freezes, cyber attacks, pandemics, or other disasters, both natural and man-made. Whereas the Federal Emergency Management Agency's 2025 theme is Preparedness Starts at Home, and seeks to remind us that we all have responsibilities for our families, pets, neighbors, and communities. Whereas talking about bad things that could happen is often difficult, yet such conversations held in a time of calm are critical parts of the preparation that can improve outcomes in a time of crisis. Whereas emergency preparedness is the responsibility of every citizen, and when individuals take responsibility for preparing their families and their communities, the chance of survival or return to normalcy following a disaster are greatly increased. Whereas National Preparedness Month is also an opportunity to pay tribute to our first responders, including local law enforcement officers, firefighters, paramedics, and public works professionals, who, when properly trained and equipped, have the greatest potential to save lives and limit casualties after a disaster or other emergency. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim September 2025 as National Preparedness Month in the Village of Downers Grove, and encourage all residents, families, neighbors, civic groups, religious institutions, and businesses to start conversations today to help prepare for tomorrow, and to visit ready.gov for help in facilitating those conversations and in developing their own emergency preparedness plans, working together toward creating a more prepared and resilient society. I encourage all citizens to find and take opportunity to thank those members of the law enforcement community, firefighting, emergency medical, and public works professionals that stand always prepared to serve our community. Dated this 9th day of September 2025, Downers Grove, Illinois. Thank you for that. Item 4 is a public hearing. We have a public hearing tonight which has to do with the proposed annexation agreement. So I will call this meeting to order. This public hearing comes to order officially. This public hearing has been called by the Village of Downers Grove to consider a proposed annexation agreement for the property located at 5724 Lamond Avenue. Notice of this hearing was published in the Daily Herald on Friday, August 22nd, 2025. I'd like to summarize the procedures for this hearing. First, I'll ask staff to summarize the annexation agreements and identify the parties involved and the properties involved. The Village Council will thereafter have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. Members of the public will then be offered an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment regarding the petitions. Statements may be presented for the record, either written or oral, and any petitions or other documents or other information relevant to this public hearing may be submitted at this time. Thereafter, we will adjourn the hearing. At this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn. A verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given at the hearing will not be prepared. The proposed agreements will be placed on public file and, if authorized by the Village Council, approval scheduled for a future active agenda. So with that, we'll move on to staff summaries.
The instructions may take more time than the actual presentation, Mayor. So to give us that presentation is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is our annexation agreement for 5724 Lamond Avenue. The property is located south of Maple Avenue and west of Hobson Road here in the circle. More particularly, the property is on the west side of Lamond, just north of 59th Street. The petitioner is requesting approval of an annexation agreement to be able to connect to the village's water system. So since they're unincorporated currently and requesting our village water, we enter into these annexation agreements if they are looking for our water. I'm happy to answer any questions that the mayor and council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Any questions or comments from the Village Council? Leslie?
No, this is a pretty standard one, so I don't have anything now. Thank you, Mayor.
Martin?
No questions or comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will declare this hearing adjourned and continue with the balance of our meeting. Item 5 is minutes of previous council meetings. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that we adopt the minutes of the village council meeting dated September 2nd, 2025, and the minutes of the executive session meeting approval only for September 2nd, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Any council comments or questions on those minutes? Leslie, any comments or questions on the minutes?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Martin?
No, sir.
Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Item 6 is our public comments portion of the meeting. We have some new faces, so we'll go through this in a little bit of detail. The public comments portion of the meeting that we're at in this moment in the agenda is for public comments on items which are not on tonight's agenda. At each item on tonight's agenda, there'll be opportunities for public comments. So this moment in time is for items not on tonight's agenda. Please remember that the council meetings are not open debates. This is a council meeting. It is a meeting open to the public, not a meeting with the public. We seldom, if ever, cut people off, but we do expect people to respect the time limit to allow everyone here an opportunity to speak this evening. That time limit is 5 minutes. If you plan to speak, please keep the following in mind when you come to the podium. State your name for the record. Address your comments to me as chair of the meeting. Keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Avoid repeating what others have already said. It's okay to say you agree with a previous speaker. In fact, you'll probably hear the council do that as we deliberate through the evening. Please keep your comments to one visit to the podium per subject. And remember that comments are most effective when they focus on subjects within the scope of Downers Grove Village governance. So if anyone has comments for the council tonight on items not on tonight's agenda, please come down to the podium and let us know what's on your mind. Okay.
Mayor, I just want to bring to your attention, Saturday when I came downtown to visit the market and the art fair, I pulled up at Warren, at the stoplight at Warren and Washington, behind a police car. There was a long freight train and a metro train that went through. Cars on both sides backed up a lot. When the gates went up, the first northbound car came, and there were about 6 or 7 in a row that were turning left onto Warren. And the first one knew what to do, turned left in front of the police car. The second one and the following ones didn't know what to do because there's a crosswalk there. And so they stopped, and the cars backed up on the tracks. And there were no pedestrians around. Instead of flowing smoothly through, they didn't know what to do. They were confused. And this was a sunny day in the morning, no weather, it was not dark. The westbound leg of Warren is closed, so there were no cars lining up to turn left to go over the tracks there, and the confusion that would cause. So at an earlier meeting when this came up with the study, Mr. Fieldman recognized that most of the evidence or discussion of how well things are going is going to be anecdotal. And I want to encourage anyone listening or here or following up to, these are the kinds of incidents that will not get reported. They're not going to come up in any statistics. There were no crashes. But it was very difficult on a very good day. So I would just want to encourage people who have any experience with this to bring it to the council's attention and the village attention so that you can get a little bit of understanding about how your process and progress is going. Thank you.
Any other subjects not on tonight's agenda? Okay, we will continue with the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Item 8 is our active agenda portion of the meeting. This is the portion of the meeting where we take up items on which we plan to take formal action this evening. These are items that have been talked about at least once, sometimes multiple times prior. But again, these are items we plan to take formal action tonight. Is there a motion concerning a lot reconfiguration?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance authorizing a lot reconfiguration with a variation for the properties located at 4909 Pershing Avenue and 4915 Pershing Avenue, Downers Grove, Illinois, as presented.
Second.
Before we get into comments or questions about this, just a reminder to the council, this item and the next require 6 positive votes. First item on the active agenda, are there any audience comments or questions? Council comments or questions?
Mayor, just a point of clarification. I don't think they both require 6. I think it's just the second
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry.
That's
You're
okay.
right.
Yeah, that's okay. Just want to be clear on that. This is just the variation, right?
Yep, I need to write better
Yep.
notes on my paper.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
Yep.
Any comments or questions from the council on the first item? Okay, Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that passes unanimously. Second item on our agenda, as Chris pointed out, is right, it's a vacation opportunity, which is where we need the 6 votes. Is there a motion concerning a vacation?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance vacating a portion of an unimproved public right-of-way adjacent to and between 5317 Washington Street and 5310 Lyman Avenue as presented.
Second.
Any audience comments or questions on this item?
Hello, Mayor. Hello. Council. Hello, my name is Dave Dipple. I've lived at 5321 Washington Street for the past 28 years. I intend to live there for at least another 28 years. I would be the property to the south of 5317 on Washington. Thank you for allowing me a moment to speak tonight. I'm here asking the council to vote against the vacating of the easement at 5317 Washington. As Mr. Popovich pointed out last week, it's been this way for 75 plus years, and we see no reason that might benefit the greater good by changing this now. The easement has been a small but unique part of our neighborhood. It buffers our homes, hides the utilities, provides a green space. It's a small but important connection between our properties. We see no good reason for this to change now. Although at this time there may only be a few of us that utilize the easement for passage, but over the years there have been many of neighbors, past and present, that have benefited from this piece of land. Whether being used by children for a shortcut to another neighbor's house, a bus stop, or just one of us adults heading to catch a train, or a simple walk. I believe our village should side with the residents who have invested years of their lives here, not with short-term development interest, such as a builder who will not live here for one day, while long-term residents like us are left with the uncertainty about changes to our environment, utilities, and daily lives. It's one thing to have to endure a tear down and new construction, and I have no say in what other people do on their own property. But we do have a reasonable expectation that some things, such as property lines and publicly owned land, won't change. As a longtime resident and supporter of Downers Grove, I find it sad as many things are getting wiped away and becoming harder to remember what was previously in some of these locations. The home at 5317 was built in 1890. It stands today. Mark my words, whatever gets built on this property will not be there 100 years from now. I realize it's too late to save this now, but I encourage the council to understand the importance of the history of our town. Last week I met with Dave Fieldman, and he asked me what my concerns were. I stated my main concern was we elected a village council to represent the residents' voice, and time again, we see our council siding with the interests of developers over the residents who have voted for you with the expectation our voices would be heard. Several weeks ago, I submitted a letter with many specifics to this piece of land. 2 of you responded, which I greatly appreciate. I was unable to attend last week's meeting, nor were my other neighbors. However, I did watch the meeting. Some questions were asked by some of you, and I can only assume that you did not take the time to read my letter, otherwise you would have had these answers. All we are asking for is fairness, transparency, and time. Let's let the people who ultimately purchase the home decide if they want to change the character of our neighborhood. I urge the council to vote against this motion and protect the interests of the representatives, the residents you represent. It's okay to say no sometimes to these people. I thank you for your time and your service to our community. Thank you. Free to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Dave.
I yield my time. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Chris Jensen, 5320 Lyman. I am back up against Mr. Dipple. I don't want to take much of your time. I'm here to support what he said. I would only say that in the Planning Commission, there was one person who said no. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Others on this item? Any council comments on this item? Anyone? Okay, we'll go to the cloud. Leslie?
Just kind of a reiteration of last week. I very much empathize with the residents who are there, and I know that I had a back and forth conversation with Mr. Dipple, but this is a fairly common to purchase part of the easement, and it isn't at least giving the land away. It is a purchase. And there will be no moving of any utilities, and those utilities will be protected, and there will be no change to any of the residents. And that will be something that I know that the village staff takes very seriously. And if there are any concerns with regard to that, we absolutely would want to know. So I just want to make sure that that part is clear. But I do understand that these changes are challenging, and just wanted to reiterate that I empathize with that. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. Likewise, I appreciate that any change to a neighborhood is a change that brings with it some uncertainty and some skepticism. But I think that the objective issues that have been identified will be addressed appropriately, and that's based on historic truisms. Mr. Dipple, I apologize if I didn't see your letter. Otherwise, I would have responded. For some reason, it escaped my view. So please accept my apologies. But the main thing here is that we have and have had for some time a vacation policy. And that policy was not put together without a great deal of thought, and its primary goal was to be objective and fair. This request, which is also brought by residents, property owners in the community, and whether they own the property or live there or not, they have the same rights. They are making this request. This request is consistent with our policy in all respects. And the one issue that's been brought up is that it would change the ingress and egress that has perhaps informally been used over time. But the reality is that vacating this easement will not create any material impact to the formal and traditional ways of ingress and egress, which most everybody else has to follow anyway. So while I likewise appreciate that change brings impact and change brings uncertainty and change brings concern, this is entirely consistent with a very objective and fair policy that has worked very well for the village for a number of years, and I see no reason to deviate from that here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council? Mike?
Yeah, I'll just add that utility easement will continue to exist in the same stretch. So I don't see where there's going to be really any fundamental change to the appearance of things, that sort of thing. I also empathize with the idea of change, and I do have to say that this council has on occasion said no to folks, and we continue to take a good look at things as we deliberate and make a decision. So just because we don't always agree with what a resident wants doesn't mean that we're not listening and not considering. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. All right, I'll just add that, Mike and Leslie and Martin all talked about it, and I'm sure every one of the council members up here recognizes the idea that change is bothersome to a community. It's always bothersome. It's bothersome to every single landowner when something about their world that they've invested in and they've called home changes. But what we're talking about here is not, first of all, as mentioned, it's part of a policy. So this is not something that some sort of recent council has decided, let's start siding with somebody else. This is a part of the Downers Grove for decades and decades, hundreds of years. Much of this community was platted out and laid out in a variety of ways with a variety of property lines. Those are often not the way we would do them today. And so things come along and opportunities come up for changes to be made, and we often do make those changes, particularly when we don't believe there is a long-term public use for the property in question. And I want to mention too, because I think it's appropriate here to mention it, there's sometimes it's often hard to see the village's work for residents because what we see are the changes that affect us, and they look like they're developers or new people or things that aren't going to be the same about our world. And those are the things we all see and we feel. And every one of us up here is a resident and sees and feels those same things. The village does an awful lot of work, and it's not felt by residents usually, but Mike will tell you about some of it. It's in ordinances, and it's in stormwater, and it's in setbacks, and it's in lot coverages, and it's in building materials. And there are, just in my tenure up here, we have made it demonstrably far more difficult and far more expensive for somebody to redevelop a parcel of property. And every one of those changes has been an effort towards protecting the environment that our existing residents live in. Have they all been effective? We could all argue about which ones have been effective to what degree. But that has absolutely been part of this village for decades to do that kind of work. It still results in changes being made to areas, houses that get replaced, that not everybody feels good about. But I think it's important to have a little broader context on it. Any other council comments? Okay, Rosa, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Nay.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that motion passes 6-1. Is there a motion concerning amending the home rule municipal service tax?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the Home Rule Municipal Service Occupation Tax and the Home Rule Municipal Retailers Occupation Tax as presented.
Second.
Any audience comments or questions about this item? Council comments or questions?
Yeah, Mayor, over here.
Oh,
Yep,
sorry.
that's
Chris?
okay. Yeah, I just want to point out that we are raising the overall sales tax to 8.5%, which is extremely consistent with several other DuPage municipalities. This effort, I think, is designed to help us understand how we can basically leverage these funds for additional projects that we have. And I think we have a concern about what may be coming. So for those who may just be tuning in, this was one of a number of options that we went through. And I think this was a good choice, and we'll keep an eye on it and see where it lands. But again, I think the consistent with the several other DuPage municipalities is just important to note. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Leslie, you have anything on this item?
Nothing to add this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Martin?
Nothing beyond what I said during first reading.
Okay. I'll just follow up a little bit on what Chris said. Those are important points, and sometimes we do get folks who are just tuning in, or maybe see only a report tomorrow morning about Downers Grove raising taxes. There is a lot of work that's been done for several months now to come to this decision by this council. And yes, it does raise taxes. It also tries to do so in a way that we believe gives us a little bit of a hedge against the unknown, helps us continue to do the work everyone expects us to do, and at the same time tries to minimize the impact on individual homeowners. So it is not perfect, and it may or may not be the end. This council will continue to work on that, but every one of these decisions is a series of meetings, typically 3 to 5 at least, with a lot of background information. So if you are tuning in for the first time tonight, or somebody tells you about this tomorrow, please go to our website, pull the agenda up, click on the link, and dig in a little bit. You'll see quite a bit of work got us to this point. Mike?
Yeah, can I just also add that we had considered borrowing money as an alternative to this as well, and chose not to, I think, wisely. So we have our guiding DG work that we need to do. We're looking at pension issues, number of things, expenses increasing. And so we run a pretty tight ship. I think this is the right answer for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion concerning an ordinance for a hotel use tax?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the hotel use tax rate as presented.
Second.
Any audience comments or questions on this item? Council comments or questions? You again.
Me again. I'll just reiterate, this was one of the options too that we looked at. I think the consensus here was that this, as Mayor talked about, the previous increase likely didn't impact our residents. And again, we'll keep an eye on this and see how it helps contribute to the things that Mike talked about what we need to do. But I will support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Leslie, anything on this one?
Nope, just that as somebody whose family is all out of town, this will actually impact my family when they come to stay. So I will be raising taxes on my family. So I'm still okay with it. Although my husband's family, who's visiting right now and is staying at a Downers Grove hotel, would manage to escape it by visiting this week. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Martin?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you. Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion concerning micromobility devices?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance establishing regulations for micromobility devices as presented.
Second.
Do you have any audience comments or questions on this item? Council comments or questions?
So
Rob?
I feel like we're missing, we need to better define scooters, the electric scooters, because as I read this, any electric scooter that goes over 10 miles an hour is just illegal in the village, unless we amend this ordinance and add in a definition which classifies the e-scooters which go over 10 miles an hour, which is pretty much every e-scooter a commuter is going to be using. So I do think we need to modify what we have before we pass it, or figure out how to bootstrap onto this one.
Can I just ask a question? Can we do that? Are we able to do that as a home rule, or we're able to do that? Okay, I support that. I think we're missing that segment in this, so whatever language needs to be added, I think that's a fair thing to add.
I'll support it as well.
You want to make a motion?
Can I amend this right now to create a definition for e-scooters over 10 miles an hour and still pass this?
Yes, but we'd also have to further define what regulations would be applicable to those scooters.
Then a motion to that.
We'll need a,
We can have the same regulations as the low-speed scooters apply, but also, I believe low-speed scooters in this draft are allowed on sidewalks, streets, and shared use paths. So if everything else will remain the same, we can do that. Is that, I mean, if that's what the council,
Before we go any further, let me check with the cloud. Leslie, do you have any thoughts, at least just initial thoughts on the idea of broadening the definition of scooters to pick up some of the higher speed ones?
Yeah, I am in support of allowing higher speed scooters. I'm more comfortable with allowing them on shared use paths and on streets, but I'm open to hearing what my colleagues have to say.
Martin, any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I'm open to coming up with a definition or an appropriate regulation that would accommodate Commissioner Rowe's point, but I'm reluctant to try to do it in an undefined fashion at this moment. I'm also reluctant to ask to table this issue because it's obviously of high priority to the community. So the question I ask is would it be acceptable to the council to proceed with the ordinance that we're about to vote on, get that in place because it covers 99% of what we're trying to address, with the understanding that we can then give our legal staff the opportunity to come up with an appropriate regulation and we can make a quick amendment in pretty short order.
I like that.
Then I'm fine with that too.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as a reminder for the public and really more than anything, all of these things that we do up here are amendable tomorrow. That's part of governing. So it would be very normal to do it that way. I'm seeing everybody kind of nodding. I'm sort of hearing the cloud nod, I think. So let's continue with the ordinance tonight as written. Make sense?
Yep.
Enzo?
I would prefer some discussion regarding what those regulations would be so
Yeah.
that we could bring a new draft.
Further that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think, I think what we're encompassing here is the majority of people that are using e-scooters that are going to be using them to get to downtown Downers, get trains, commuters most of them are 15 to 20 mile an hour vehicles. So we need to make sure that we leave enough flexibility so that we're incentivizing the use of these electric scooters also consistent with the guiding DG that we just put in.
I think one of the issues here is that table, guys.
Yeah.
The streets, shared use paths and sidewalks, right?
Yeah.
If we add on there a line in the left-hand column that said, whatever we call it, high-speed scooters or whatever, we should all try and give a little commentary to the staff as to what we think about that.
Okay. And what I think is we should get a definition of high speed up to like 25 miles an hour. I think that's what we commonly see. Definitely on streets and definitely on shared use paths. I don't know if we really need them on sidewalks.
No, I don't want them on the sidewalk.
So,
I don't want them on the sidewalks. No, I totally love your point that there are certain people that use them responsibly and use them to get to work. So if we're going to allow the higher speed ones, I'm totally comfortable with them being on the roads, but we do need to make that clear what's allowed on the sidewalk versus the road. And I know enforcement will be hard, but it's still better to have something down and then worry about enforcement. I think it's just an important statement to make.
Leslie, any thoughts on that table and this idea of higher speed scooters?
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely in favor of adding a definition of a high-speed scooter, whether it be the 10 to 25 miles per hour. And I would be in favor of streets and shared use paths and would prefer not to have them on the sidewalks. That's it.
Martin?
I agree with what Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit just said.
Anyone else?
I agree.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead.
I agree with that as well. I think I'm a little more open to the sidewalk, but it doesn't sound like that has a lot of legs here on these scooters, so I'm not sure
That's
that
funny.
that would.
Legs and scooters like that. Yeah, I like that.
So I'll happily take a look at what we have, but it sounds like we've got some consensus on if we can come up with something other than high speed. I don't really consider 15
Yeah.
miles an hour high speed, but I understand it's a distinction from the low speed. So I would like to talk about class 1 and class 2 on the sidewalks, but I'll wait for your direction on that, Mayor.
You feel like you got good direction on that from us, right? We're gonna put high-speed scooters in there. It sounds like we're gonna put them in a table form that doesn't include that. We'll get a draft of that sometime in the not too
And that
distant
would
future.
read like yes, yes, no under the
Something like
table
that.
like that.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
we'll all talk about it again, but that's enough for now. All right, so the balance of this proposed ordinance here. Chris, you wanted to start out?
Yeah, I think, probably no surprise, I've mentioned it to some of you already, and even last time, but I think I would like to ask my colleagues to reconsider the prohibition of the Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes on the sidewalks. I said it before, I'll say it again, I think we're conflating these pedal assist bikes with the already illegal dirt bikes that have been causing some stir around town. And I just don't think that's fair. We look at like the research done on some of these e-bike accidents and fatalities. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission did a 5-year study, recorded 193 e-bike fatalities. 113 of those came from motor vehicle collisions. 10 were involving pedestrians, but they do not distinguish whether it was sidewalk or the road. I would argue that some of those were pedestrians hit in a crosswalk, maybe sidewalk, but 14 of those deaths came from battery-related fires. So you're more likely to die from your scooter lighting your garage on fire or house on fire than you are actually being hit by one. But the reality is the cars are what are causing this death. And so what we're doing now is we're taking these cyclists and pushing them out into the streets. I think the idea that people are going to be zipping down these sidewalks is a little overblown, candidly. We talk about kids and what they ride at. There's been lots of studies measuring sort of the speed that kids go on sidewalks. It's typically around 7 to 9 miles an hour, no different than some of these other devices. And I just think generally sidewalks are slower paths for cyclists. If you're riding on the sidewalk, you're going to be slower for lots of reasons. I know that we're sort of working towards a more bikeable community. We are nowhere near that yet. And so this idea that we're sort of pushing people out onto the streets, just makes me a little nervous. I 100% agree that putting folks on sidewalks with these e-bikes and any of this that we're discussing tonight has to be paired with an educational component. And I think we can look at District 58, 99, and we have to create some kind of program that makes these kids and parents aware of what we're actually what we're talking about. But the bottom line for me, I think, is the accidents are happening with the cars. And then I think one other point that I sort of thought of driving over, we're allowing them on streets, right? We're allowing them on shared paths. Well, we've got some instances where we're having shared paths go into sidewalks. And so we're now going to have this potentially, as maybe shared paths get more common, we have this issue of people trying to figure out where they should or shouldn't be. So for me, I think it wouldn't be a leader here. Glen Ellen does this, allows this already. And I would just ask my fellow council members maybe to reconsider this, to perhaps try to get some of the bias of these fast bikes sort of out of the discussion. But that's mostly what I have to say about this topic. I think everything else looks good. I agree with what Rob brought up, but we can discuss that at a later time.
Mike?
So I have a question. So you're advocating to not allow class 3
Correct.
e-bikes on sidewalks, but say okay to 1 and 2.
Correct.
So one concern I have is how our police officers would be able to readily distinguish between them to know whether or not to say to somebody, hey, you don't belong there or not on the sidewalk. Because I don't know that it's really easy to distinguish from a distance anyhow between a class 1, 2, and 3 e-bike.
I think that's a fair point. I would argue we could run into that situation with the scooters.
So I agree,
Yeah.
and I'm not looking to allow the scooters on the sidewalks either. So,
Right.
in this case, I think in my opinion, it's really got to be an all or nothing. So you're going to say yes to all 3 classes, or you're going to say no to all 3 classes when it comes to the sidewalks. And I hear what you're saying, but and I alluded to this before. Certainly, we passed an ordinance. We expect it to be enforced. However, I suspect that people. The problem is people going too fast on the sidewalks, and this is what I've said before. And I recognize fully that a lot of adults. Riding a pedal-powered bike, you can move right along, right? If you're in great shape and you got the right bike. But on the sidewalks, be kind of a bumpy road. That won't be fun for most adults, and they'll choose not to do that. But certainly, some of the younger folks love a challenge, and the idea of something going pretty quick down a sidewalk, traversing a lot of driveways that cross sidewalks and things of that nature. I think that we need this tool for our police officers to enforce these kinds of dangerous situations, and by saying no to all 3 classes on the sidewalks allows them that ability. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I doubt very much that if we pass this ordinance that we're going to see a sudden uptick in traffic, car, e-bike issues. I really just don't think. I don't think the world's going to change a whole lot after we pass this ordinance, but it is going to give our officers another tool to enforce some of the issues that have been going on in town. And granted, there has been a conflation of things. I know that, but along with this ordinance, that educational component, I hope gets a lot of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. I mean, I'm sure that there are parents out there who aren't aware of some of the regulations and what some of their kids are up to, so hopefully with a little more education, we can have an impact, and the word will get out, and things will improve, and we certainly can, as we just discussed in the previous deliberation. This can all be revisited again to kind of look at how it's going and see if we need to make some adjustments to it. And I'd certainly be willing to look at this again after a period of time. So, thank you, Mayor.
Let me ask a question of my colleagues that don't want e-bikes on the sidewalks. I've heard about speed and interference with walkers and driveways, and interference with cars going in and out of driveways. How is that different than human-powered devices?
I don't like human-powered devices on sidewalks.
Okay, that's a fair answer. Anyone else?
I would argue it's no different.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
It is different.
Bikes are going to do exactly what bikes do today. If they are comfortable and they're going to be on the street and they're going to be moving fast, and if they are less comfortable, they're going to be on the sidewalk. And I guess I really struggle with the idea we're trying real hard to separate cars and bikes. And Mike, you're probably right. There's not going to be some rash all of a sudden of car and bike problems. But we are decades away from what might be envisioned in terms of a bikeable community separating bikes from cars. So what we're talking about is, in the very real tomorrow, what do we hope people do and what do we want them to do? I'm really struggling with the idea that we don't want people on the sidewalks with bikes, because we do. What we do is we just don't want them going fast on the sidewalks. And so I fully agree with Chris on this. And I'm really struggling to understand, because I think, as Tammy said, I think that I don't agree with Tammy, but I can follow the logic, and I'm struggling to follow the logic on why we would have, if we're gonna allow it on sidewalks, why we would say we can't have slow e-bikes. And here's the other thing, we talk about police enforcement. We're not gonna be trolling around looking for this, right? We're gonna react when we have bad situations. Which means that people riding e-bikes slowly can be on the sidewalk all the time and probably not have any idea that they're on the sidewalk. And if you're on a bike, how does somebody know class 1 and 2 versus a class 3? Well, probably from driving by it, not very easily, but I would say that's also true, frankly, of e-bikes and human-powered devices. Frame designs and battery designs, there are a lot of e-bikes, bikes with batteries out there that are pretty tough to differentiate. But I'm gonna go to the cloud for a minute. Hang on one second.
Sure.
We got this conversation going, and we're forgetting Leslie and Martin about you two. Leslie, you got some additional thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that is the point, is the speed. And I think that adults can pick up that speed on a human powered bike more than a young kid probably can from a responsible manner. You know, it really does take a lot of training to be able to ride your bike that fast for a prolonged period of time. And I just can't see a kid being able to do that. Whereas it's a lot simpler on an e-bike. And so those are just some of my concerns. Maybe they're not founded. I don't know. But that is kind of where my brain was going in terms of the speed that you were referring to, Mayor. And again, like you said, this isn't a forever thing. It's not that I'm not interested to see kind of where we end up and revisiting the conversation if we think that it might be worth revisiting. But part of me would rather err on the side of caution to start and then see how it works from there. So that was my thought process.
Thank you. Martin?
Likewise, as I indicated before, I think it's important for the public interest that we put forth a very good ordinance tonight, and we not let perfect be the enemy of good. I hear what has been said by my fellow commissioners. What Commissioner Gilmartin is saying, I'm still listening to, I'm still open to figuring out how to tackle that. Same thing with Commissioner Rowe's point, as I said earlier. I'm not saying that we won't do that, but I would like to proceed with what we have, because I think it solves a lot that should be enacted with all due haste. And then I think that what we do is make it incumbent upon ourselves to refine these issues and tweak as we need to. And candidly, we all know that there's going to be experience over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months that are going to probably justify some further tweaks. That's just the nature of the beast. That's happening in other communities. It will happen in Downers Grove.
Me. I would like to, yes. Appreciate the comments. I just want a point of clarity before I go on. With the class 1 and class 2 not being allowed on the sidewalks, we are pushing them to the street. Is there an age limit that we are requiring to ride an e-bike that is a class 1 or class 2?
There is not.
No. So I'm a parent of a 12-year-old who has an e-bike. I want that kid who I've, from age 8, 9, 10, 11, said, can you just please ride on the sidewalk? I just feel better about you not being in traffic. I buy that kid an e-bike, and I now have to tell my child, don't ride on the sidewalk, I need you to ride in the street. That's a reality that we're gonna have to face. And if we all agree to this education program, that's exactly what we're gonna have to tell these young kids and their parents. So I think the fear of, and we also know that when Chief DeVries was before us and talked about the issues that we had that it was, all the reports were these illegal bikes. So this idea of the problem of speed, the data doesn't play out. It doesn't show that we have issues with kids on e-bikes, on sidewalks, running pedestrians down. I'm not saying there aren't cases where that may have happened and wasn't reported. I'm just suggesting that it sounds like we're making this problem, or we're, again, projecting this problem on these devices that we shouldn't. So to me, I am not interested in forcing a parent of a 12-year-old to have their kid ride in the street, especially because we are not set up as a fully bikeable village, as the mayor said, decades away. The other part on the enforcement, yeah, I get you can't tell between a class 1 or class 2, or 3, but I think the idea of enforcement, it was after something happened. And as soon as something happens, you're going to be able to walk over to that bike and see what class it is and make a determination on what the circumstance and perhaps the consequences should be. So the issues are the accidents are happening in the street. So that's where I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this fear, when the reality is we're actually maybe focusing on the low risk side and not so much on the high risk side. A very low risk, which is the sidewalk. So as I say that out loud and I think about 12-year-old kids, maybe I can't support this as it's written. So, thanks, Mayor.
So, I agree, Chris. I agree with what you're saying, and also I think we need to recognize too how many streets we have in Downers Grove where we really don't want to see bikes. Important streets like Main Street, Fairview, and Ogden, and 75th Street. And that's where we want to see people get out of the street and still bike. So I'm in total support of what you're proposing too, exactly for that reason. And again, if 6 months down the road we need to tweak it, we can tweak it. But I'd rather allow the use on these incredibly busy streets on the sidewalk.
I'm obviously at the total opposite end of this spectrum, so.
So, to go back to something you were asking, I had said before that I too would not want human-powered bikes on sidewalks, but for the fact that we have parents riding with their kids, and we have kids. I certainly want kids on the sidewalks, not in the streets, is what I had said previous. So, interesting caveat that Chris has raised. I guess I would wonder, I have no idea if there's any manufacturer guidelines or what. I mean, are e-bikes suitable for people of all ages or not? I don't know. This is going to be imperfect. We've talked about that before. The big issue that we're dealing with here is the fact that we have sidewalks and we have streets. Sidewalks were meant for walking and streets were meant for vehicular traffic. And now we have this in-between stuff that has no place to go. And I certainly empathize with our residents who like to go for a walk and like not to worry about getting run over. And maybe they're able, because they're not going 55 miles an hour, they're only going 20 miles an hour. People are able to jump out of the way, and but that's, no matter what we do here, it's imperfect. For the folks that are wanting to not ride on the busy streets, I would say pick a less busy parallel street to ride on for now, until we can get this bike and mobility plan built out over the next couple of decades. So thank you, Mayor.
Leslie, anything else to add?
I don't have anything else to add.
Martin?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, with all due respect to what everybody's saying, we're going to continue to work through this, and we may address all these things very soon. So please understand that we very well may fix this exact issue in 6 months. I also just have to note that while no one wants to force a 12-year-old kid to drive the street, we're also not forcing any parents to purchase e-bikes in the first place. So it's a matter of let us proceed with this, address an issue, and then we can address some of the, and I mean with the absolute respect, because all these issues are very important, what I'm considering some of the fringe issues.
Anyone else? Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say the idea of a 12-year-old having an e-bike is probably going to be way more common than not within the next couple years. So the idea of parents not buying them, sure. But I also think there's lots of potential dangers on a sidewalk if we're going to throw out things that could possibly happen. I brought this up last time we talked about it, but are we going to stop walking dogs on sidewalks?
They don't go 20 miles an hour.
But they can bite and they can hurt. And I
ride
would
e-bikes?
love to see the evidence where kids are driving e-bikes 20 miles an hour on the sidewalks. It is
But
not.
we have a dog biting ordinance.
No, I need a little more than just I've seen it, because I just don't believe it. And if they are class 1 or class 2, which you clearly can't determine from looking at it, that's a different story. But these are the issues that were raised by the chief of police, which were all these illegal bikes. So, yeah, I think we're putting kids under the street, and I'm not going to vote for that.
I'll not beat that to death. But I can't support this ordinance as it is for two reasons. One is the one that's coming, but we have an ordinance here that I think this is two big opportunities. One we're going to get to at some point, but I really feel pretty strongly about this class 1 and 2 e-bike thing. We just don't have any data. We talk about making data-driven decisions. We just don't have any that says people are having to get out of the way real quick of some bike flying down the sidewalk. That's one of these bikes. What we have is lots of evidence that kids on already illegal and still illegal devices are making bad choices. Yes, we have a lot of evidence of that. We have evidence of guys riding wheelies down Main Street, not on pedaled e-bikes. They're doing it with their motorcycle helmets on their electric dirt bikes. So I think we're chasing the wrong boogeyman, and I think our solution is actually, for me, is inappropriately limiting what I think is a big opportunity for us to encourage an environment we're all chasing. So I'm not going to be able to get on board with this as is. We probably ought to go ahead and vote. Anybody got anything last minute comments?
Mayor, I will say that I've been kind of following other municipalities, and some of them have been amending one way versus another. Some Clarendon Hills and Hinsdale have been kind of getting a little tighter. And I have been reading some articles and hearing some statements made by them that they're actually seeing some kids go back to typical pedal bikes because of some of the limitations and kind of I guess just the regulations and whatnot. It is actually becoming safer and easier for kids to then go back to kind of a typical bike structure than it is to start using the e-bike. So I don't necessarily know that we are going to be seeing huge numbers of e-bikes, but it is something to keep in mind that regular bikes are still out there and are still available for kids. And that's honestly all my child has right now. And if we pass this now and keep an eye on it, it is not saying that e-bikes will never be a thing for children, but I do think we're making a mistake if we assume that all kids are going to have e-bikes right now, and we're ruining everything if we don't pass it for sidewalks immediately. So just my 2 cents, similar to Commissioner Tully. Thank you.
Okay, Rosa, let's take a roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Nay.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Nay.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Nay. That motion passes 4-3. We will be talking again about at least a piece of it sometime soon. Okay, that takes us to item 9 on our agenda, which is our first reading. This is the portion of the meeting where we take up subjects sometimes for the first time, sometimes for the second, third, or 10th time, but these are items on which we do not plan to take formal action this evening. These are items that are for discussion only tonight. With that, I'll hand it over to Village Manager Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 7 items on tonight's first reading agenda, but really only 2 items or topics for further discussion. The first item is that the annexation agreement that we talked about during the hearing. So we're going to skip on past that one that was discussed earlier. The next 5 items have to do with the proposed development on 39th Street. Here to present background information on this petition is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have 5 items before you: an annexation, planned unit development, a rezoning, a plat of subdivision, and a subdivision improvement agreement for the property at 139th Street. The property is located in the far northeast corner of the village, more specifically at the northeast corner of 39th Street and Cumner Road. Currently, the property is unincorporated DuPage County. The aerial here on the screen shows 2 previous buildings and 3 previous radio broadcast towers. These structures have been demolished through the DuPage County permitting process. The property is contiguous to the village, as the 39th Street right-of-way is within the village, as are the properties immediately on the south side of 39th Street, as shown here by the colors on our zoning map. The petitioner has prepared a plat of annexation outlined here in the pink. This would include the Williams Street right-of-way on the east, on the right-hand side of the screen, and the Cumner Road right-of-way on the west. The pink outline here shows the development site as a whole. You will see that there are 35 single-family residential lots proposed. There are 10 lots facing 39th Street, 7 lots facing Cumner, 4 lots facing Williams, and 14 facing the proposed Pierce Drive in the middle of the property. In addition to the 35 residential lots, there are 2 outlots, A and B, that will be used for stormwater detention purposes, and 1 outlot, outlot C, on the north property line being used as a landscaped buffer screening between this subdivision and the subdivision to the north. The petitioner will be dedicating land for right-of-way purposes for Cumner Road, Pierce Drive, and Williams Street. If we move into the public improvements, the petitioner will be widening Cumner Road, will be constructing Pierce Drive, and will be widening Williams Street. The petitioner will be installing a new water main on the north side of 39th Street, along the west and north sides of Pierce Drive, and along the west side of Williams Street. The existing 39th Street water main that is on the south side of the 39th Street right-of-way will be abandoned in place. The petitioner will be installing new services from the new water main to the properties on the south side of 39th Street that are currently being used by the existing water main. A new sanitary sewer will be installed on the east and south side of Pierce Drive and tie into an existing sanitary line within the 39th Street right-of-way. The existing sanitary infrastructure along Cumner, 39th, and Williams will also serve the development. Stormwater management will be handled by 3 native planted basins and a native planted wetland. In the southeast corner of the site, stormwater will be collected in Basin 3, and then it will connect then into the village's existing stormwater infrastructure on the south side of 39th Street. This will be maintained by a restrictor, which will restrict the amount of flow that can go out into that storm sewer. The southern, southwest, and sort of middle portions of the site will be collected into Basin 2, and then the northeast corner of the property will be collected and flow into the wetland. The Basin 2, any overflow from Basin 2 will flow into the wetland to the north there as well. The west side of the development will be captured into Basin 1, and the wetland, similar to Basin 2 and wetland, the wetland will overflow into Basin 1. A new stormwater structure in the northwest corner of the subdivision will connect to the Village of Oak Brook's storm sewer system within the 38th Street right-of-way, which is controlled by the Village of Oak Brook. The wetland in each of these basins will be planted with native vegetation, which will provide best management practices for the development. BMPs are intended to reduce the volume of water going into the existing infrastructure and improve the quality of water by using native vegetation to slow, filter, and absorb water and pollutants from going downstream. The petitioner is proposing to construct shared use paths shown through Outlot A, the west side of Pierce Drive, and along 39th Street, and as identified on the active transportation plan on 39th Street. Sidewalks will also be installed in these purple areas there as well. The subdivision improvement agreement memorializes the resurfacing of 39th Street, the water connections for those residents on the south side of 39th Street, the widening of Cumner Road and Williams Street, the installation of the shared use paths, and includes discussions of interim uses, including the construction of up to 4 model homes and a temporary parking lot on Lot 30 and a sales office in the Lot 31 model home. You can see Lot 30 and 31 are sort of in the center of the site adjacent to Basin 3. The petitioner submitted this proposal while the village was still using the 2017 comprehensive plan, so staff reviewed the proposal under that guidance. The plan calls for quality housing stock, a variety of housing stock, and redevelopment that is sensitive to the existing neighborhood. The 2017 future land use plan identified this property as institutional based on the former uses there, which were the radio towers and the support buildings. But while working through the Guiding DG project and ultimately shown in the Guiding DG comprehensive plan, the current future land use plan identifies this parcel as single-family detached residential. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this petition at their August 25th meeting and found that the proposal met the standards identified here and recommended approval of the petition. I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have. We also have a variety of our MI Home team petitioners here as well to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Stan. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience on this item? On down to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Alan Corrin, and I'm the president of the Saddlebrook Community Association in Oak Brook. Saddlebrook is just to the north of the Talon Preserve development that's proposed. And Saddlebrook is the second largest subdivision within Oak Brook. And we're very happy to be allowed to speak to you this evening. We're coming in favor of the annexation, and we're in favor of the wonderful village of Downers Grove. You've got good rules. We know you'll enforce those rules, and we've got full confidence in Downers Grove. We want to thank the M&I Homes, because they've been working very, very well with some of our adjacent homeowners. It was indicated on the map that there's going to be a buffer of trees, and that's a very, very nice gesture on the part of M&I Homes, and we want to thank them very much for their cooperation. We have a declaration as an association. I think every association has declarations. A lot of them are boilerplate, and they have boilerplate language. I'm just going to read you just one little phrase from our declaration. It says, to create a corporation, and the Saddlebrook Community Association is a corporation, to which should be delegated and assigned the power of maintaining and administering the common area. This is typical language, but for us, we don't have a swimming pool, we don't have a clubhouse, but we have something that's important to us, and that is we've got 2 pond areas. One of them is the west pond, one of them is the east pond. The east pond is not relevant to our discussion tonight, but the west pond is very relevant because the Talon Preserve will be tributary to the west pond, and that was mentioned by staff. The water will be going through Oak Brook, he mentioned, down 38th Street and over to the west pond. So, why am I here tonight? That's a good question, right? So, I'm here because we'd like to protect the west pond. The west pond is a great pond, and unfortunately, when you have algae in your pond, what happens is the algae dies and becomes sediment. Your pond water gets less deep, it becomes warmer, and what happens is that as it becomes warmer, the algae grows even more. And so what encourages the growth of algae? Nutrients, soil. Actually, there's a lot of nutrients in soil, and we know soil will be heading in that direction. And also, there's going to be other types of nitrates, phosphates that'll be going in that direction. We believe that we're concerned what could happen is that the algae is going to be fed even more than it's being fed right now. We had to dredge our east pond. We used hydraulic dredging. It wasn't very expensive, but we had to do it, and we're afraid that we may have to, at some point, dredge our west pond. And so we're asking for the Village of Downers Grove to help us with this situation. We've asked the M&I Homes to allow us to do water quality testing. You do baseline testing before the development starts, because that's how you know you have to change. You're looking for the delta, the change. And so you do baseline testing, and then you do continuous testing thereafter. And you look to see what's the delta, what's the change. And that gives you quantitative information. And we thought that would be helpful because we don't know what's going to happen. But when you have testing, sometimes you find out what's happening. Is something happening? Is something not happening? Unfortunately, M&I Homes has refused our request. And so what I'm going to do is turn it over to a fellow board member. His name is Bob Iverson. He's going to follow me up to the board. He is a civil engineer and hydrologist, and he's an expert in this area with quite a wonderful resume, and he's going to be talking to you next. Thank you.
As Alan said, my name is Bob Iverson. I'm a current board member on the Saddlebrook Community Association. I'm also a resident just downhill on 38th Street, on the north side of 38th Street, just east of Fairview. We just are interested in collecting grab samples prior to construction and request that you make that a condition of your either the subdivision improvement agreement or a construction permit to allow us to go in there and get some grab samples prior to construction start of the new facilities. Thank you very much.
Other public comments on this item?
I think that single-family development on this parcel is probably, it's a given. It's a great parcel for another neighborhood. I looked at the renderings, though, and it seems to me, and they're expensive homes, nice homes, except their exteriors are cold. That looks to me like Stepford cookie cutters, and unfortunately, like Longfellow turned out to be. And unfortunately, this one will be 3 times the size of Longfellow. And it is, I think, a very cold look. And I don't think that's the look that is welcoming to Downers Grove. So looks like a nice development. I just wish it had more character and warmth. Thank you.
Other public comments on this item? Okay, council comments, questions? Mike, go ahead.
I'll kick us off. This looks like a wonderful development, and I think is going to be a terrific addition to Downers Grove. And contrary to previous comments, I think it will fit quite nicely. In fact, at 1.2 to 1.6 mil, if the houses don't look good, you'll have trouble selling them. So I suspect that that'll be worked out. Wondering, I noticed that there's an HOA that's being created. Is that so? I know that that's pretty typical in kind of a contained subdivision, but is that typical with this sort of an application where you have several houses fronting on on streets that kind of feel like they're not part of, I mean, aesthetically, they'll match, but otherwise, for instance, the houses along the west side are, closer to the street, the houses across the street than they are the rest of the development. So that just struck me as a little curious. Is that normal?
Yes, in town, in the village with a lot of infill development, we do see sometimes where the subdivision does have properties that front out onto adjacent right-of-ways.
And the purpose of the HOA is really to maintain the common areas, which include the stormwater maintenance, correct?
That's correct, and as part of this, the village will be working with MI Homes to develop a special service area for those areas as well, in case the HOA were not to maintain the detention areas, then the village would have to come in, and then so that SSA would cover those costs. But that process would come after this process.
Excellent. Important. So I'm really glad to see that. About this detention, I want to point out too, since I have a little knowledge about building and development, I do know that the detention capabilities here actually exceed the demand that's going to be created with this. So if any of the neighbors are concerned that somehow this is going to lead to more stormwater issues in their neighborhood, the exact opposite is likely true here, because there's a requirement that the developer do more than just what meets the need, but in fact exceeds the need substantially. Concerned a little bit about comments made by our Oak Brook neighbors there. I'm wondering, though, it seems to me that if you did a baseline test right now, that information would only be useful if you have a history of doing tests at the adjoining pond to know what difference is occurring as a result of this development, right? So I don't know if staff was already aware of this concern coming in tonight. I don't remember.
Staff was aware of the concern, but MI Homes could probably speak to that a little bit more if you had some questions about that.
Yeah, so maybe if MI could share why they're not in agreement to doing the baseline testing, and maybe speak to a comment I made about the fact that it's most valuable only if there's a history. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Scott Barenbrugge, Vice President of Land for MI Homes. Very excited to be here. It's been a long and exciting process working with staff, with neighbors, including residents in Saddlebrook to our north and surrounding residents on Cumner, 39th, and Williams. It's a unique property. We're adjacent to several jurisdictions, right? We're on the border between Downers Grove and Oak Brook. We're on the border with unincorporated DuPage County, unincorporated Westmont and Downers Grove, and then Village of Downers Grove residents to the south. So, definitely a melting pot of different jurisdictions. As I've explained to Alan and to Bob, in my 21 years acting in the development industry, I do have a civil engineering background as well. I've never had a jurisdictional entity request testing of water quality on our private property. In this case, an adjacent homeowners association is not a jurisdictional entity. But that being the case, municipalities don't ask for this type of information. I was told they wanted to collect water samples from both the on-site wetland as well as the detention basins in Talon Preserve, not in their own pond.
Oh, okay.
So it's a very unusual request, which is why I asked why they wanted this information. The explanation I received is that they wanted to know whether they should be adjusting their budgeting for any potential addressing of algae plumes or dredging. My response to them was that the much more direct way to understand whether you have an algae plume is to inspect your own pond. But I also want to take a step back and explain all the things that we are going to do in cooperation with Saddlebrook. So as Stan mentioned earlier, we were very careful to take the northern 20 feet adjacent to our neighbors. And in addition to the 20-foot outlot that's being dedicated behind the adjacent home sites on the eastern side of the property, we also reserve the 20 feet adjacent to our detention basin as an undisturbed area. So we artificially held the grading limits into the property rather than grading all the way up to the property line, which again is kind of unusual. But we thought it was appropriate in this case because we have people that have been living there 30 years or more, and they're used to having a tree line, and we didn't want to take advantage of that. So that's the first thing we did. We've maintained open lines of communication. The request that we heard for on-site water quality testing didn't come to us personally. It was voiced at the commission meeting, the public hearing. So that was the first time we heard of it. We assumed they were talking about testing of their own facility. I've since confirmed that that's not the case. They want to enter our private property and collect samples from the site. So just on principle, I was not in agreement with that. I think there's much more straightforward ways for them to get the information they're looking for. But I think the important thing to focus on is that we have very rigorous monitoring and testing when it comes to soil and water pollution and erosion control, both permitted through the stormwater review with the Village of Downers Grove. We did a full stormwater review with our outfall in the 38th Street right-of-way with the Village of Oak Brook. We have a formal agreement on land use with the Village of Oak Brook that benefits Saddlebrook as well. And the permitting we have with the IEPA in enforcement of the NPDES permit, which requires weekly monitoring of the site and all of our best management practices and erosion control measures, as well as every time there's a rainfall event, we're going to go out and inspect it again within 24 hours to make sure that silt fence and all the other BMPs are being upheld and that we're not having any downstream discharges that could impact the Saddlebrook West Basin that's a half mile down the road. So that's our pledge to them. That is our permit requirement that we're going to maintain throughout the development. We've also agreed to inspect that offsite West Basin of Saddlebrook as part of our monitoring schedule. So in addition to looking at all of our on-site BMPs, we will be visiting that pond to make sure there's no discharge to the pond. So I think we've gone above and beyond. It's an unusual request we've received. We don't understand the reason for it, so we've suggested that we're not open to it.
The discharge to the pond only happens in an overflow event, is that correct?
So right now, there is no on-site detention, and as you mentioned, there's nothing better that we can do for addressing pre-existing drainage and flooding issues in this entire part of town than to put in modern, well-designed, engineered stormwater management. So right now, we just have a wetland that in a large enough event, might be a 100 or 500 year storm event, would overtop onto 38th Street in a completely uncontrolled fashion. And, when you have those types of uncontrolled releases, you probably are carrying a lot of sediment and, particulates and things like that. So that would just spill into the 38th Street right-of-way. Once our improvements are installed, basement 1 will be hard connected to a storm sewer, so all the low flow will maintain, can be conveyed in the storm sewer. And then only that, extra large storm event would potentially have a discharge into the right-of-way overland.
I know there was topography with this. I don't recall whether or not the existing topography currently is draining to the north or not. Do you know?
So
the existing site, the way it is unimproved today,
yeah,
where's the water draining to?
So right now, there isn't a controlled release outfall location, but if that wetland fills up high enough, it would overtop into the northwest corner, and it could also overtop into Cumner.
It's reasonable to assume that this actually improves on the existing situation.
Oh, absolutely, in every way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Maybe you want to stay there in case some of my
just to
colleagues
follow
have
up on
questions.
So, can you walk me through how you just sort of did how the detention works from wetland to basin 1 then to the outflow?
Yeah, and for that question, I'm actually going to invite our real engineer up to the podium, Brian Ratajczak from Spaceco, and he can walk through the whole system.
Thanks. A real engineer.
Good evening, Commission members and Mayor. My name is Brian Ratajczak with Spaceco, 9575 West Higgins in Rosemont. So the western side of the site, as Mr. Popovich did an excellent job describing there, We've got a certain portion that's coming to Basin 2. Basin 2's got a controlled release rate out to the wetland. There's other portions from the site itself that will also drain to the wetland. We've done a whole stormwater management report to demonstrate amount of water that's coming to the wetland in the proposed condition to mimic what's happening in the existing condition to help that wetland continue to be a wetland in the future. And then there's a controlled release from that wetland north into Basin 1. At the northwest corner of Basin 1, there's an outlet control structure that will be there. And as was discussed before, we've submitted to the Village of Oak Brook. They've reviewed the off-site 38th Street storm sewer extension that's proposed as part of these plans that connects downstream at the intersection with School Street. That's the next cul-de-sac to the west.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or did you have additional?
No, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Leslie, you have any thoughts or comments or questions?
No, I do appreciate the consideration to stormwater, that it really does go above and beyond. And of course, the native plantings, this is certainly going to improve the drainage in this area. As somebody who has talked at length about affordable housing, of course, I wish that we had, some housing at a little more affordable price points, but I understand that that's not in the cards for this particular subdivision. But all in all, this is a quality proposal and fits right in with what you would expect to see here. So look forward to supporting it next week. And I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Two more.
Hold the question. Yeah. Martin, you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate this project coming forward. Given that Downers Grove is landlocked and has not had a lot of infill development in recent years, we haven't had a chance to look at something like this in quite a while. So it's interesting and allows us to dust off some tools and some analysis that we don't get to use very often because we don't ordinarily get to look at plan unit developments or subdivisions of this size. I agree this is a quality development, and I'm particularly buoyed by the supportive and positive statements from the representatives at the Saddlebrook Homeowners Association, because I know in the past there was some concern about what might be done on the old WCFL property. I think everyone's pretty pleased with what this is and what it will be. Looking at the stormwater issues, Commissioner Davenport and Commissioner Rowe addressed all the questions that I had, so I don't need to repeat that whole conversation. The other thing I'll note is that our downtown design guidelines don't apply here. And while people may have different opinions, we really try not to regulate taste or aesthetics. I am obviously very glad, Stan, to hear you mention the SSA that will be put in place here for the detention areas, because that is a practice that has served us very well over more recent years and is an absolute necessity for any new subdivision with detention areas like this. And do believe that the overall stormwater management will be improved by this, as it often is when folks have to comply with both our and the counties and other stormwater ordinances. Really appreciate hearing from the proposed developer about the coordination with the Village of Oak Brook. That's terrific. So I'll just end by saying, in summary, that the Plan Commission basically found that this was an appropriate use in the district, was compatible vision, zoning, and a subdivision plan development. I will continue to look at this, as I know my colleagues will as well, but all this seems to make sense and seems to be appropriate with our ordinance, including the proposed zoning upon annexation. So I don't have any further questions at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Rob.
So one of the questions I had was about the office that we're allowing as part of the project. Are there specific business hours that office is going to be open and closed in the proposal?
I don't believe there are specific hours, but we could ask MI to answer that question for you.
Yeah.
Our typical sales office hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
And then I know that this is a 4-year project when I was reading through this. Do we have like a rough timeline for just the first 24 months on this project? So that way we can kind of let the neighbors know this is kind of what to expect the next year to 2 years?
That's spelled out in the subdivision improvement agreement,
Yeah.
And sort of the phasing that way. And I think MI, if they want, Scott wants to come up again, we'll talk a little bit about the phasing. That'd be great.
I'll stay up here this time. So we detailed phasing at the public hearing for all the residents that attended, which there was a larger group at that meeting. But just to make sure that everybody that's here tonight can hear the same verbiage, I'll try to be as close to what I explained at that meeting tonight. So generally speaking, we are very anxious to start mass earthwork on the site as soon as we have ordinance approval. So we're in coordination with staff on scheduling pre-cons and things of that nature to make sure all of our contractors are aware of all the village requirements, construction hours, things of that nature. Generally speaking, there's not going to be a ton of time left for development seasonally. Anytime you start in the back half of September, you're kind of up against the 8 ball. So the plan is to do earthwork that'll allow us to get stormwater management in place. It'll put us in a position to do winter underground construction, because that's the one thing you can do during a Chicago winter is dig trenches and put some pipes in the ground. So in the meantime, we will have all the undergrounds installed for construction to begin on 39th Street, which is our existing road that doesn't require widening. So that's not only the location of our model home, but also our first several homes that would be constructed for prospective buyers. Once we can come back in the spring and early summer, start attacking the roadway widening on Cumner to the west and Williams to the east, then that would be the second phase of lots that would become available. And then we would actually finish with our on-site road on Pierce Drive and then build our way, through the center of the subdivision. So we'll effectively be working from the outside in. You mentioned 4 years. 4 years is an outside completion date that we've agreed to in the SIA. We're certainly hoping to move a lot faster than that.
And then is there a definitive, hey, when this event occurs, that's when the offices will close? Because I'm sure the neighbors would love those to close and turn into houses as soon as possible.
Yes, that's identified in the subdivision improvement agreement as well.
Okay. Two more questions. Cumner is kind of a wonky intersection now, but looking at these plans, it looks like you guys widening Cumner is going to make it more of an exact 4-way stop. Is that, and it's going to
That's
clear up
right.
it honestly looks like what you guys are going to do is clean up the Cumner intersection.
So there's a few things we have to do on Cumner. We have to move the existing mailboxes from the east side of Cumner to the west side to be adjacent to the current residents' driveways.
Yeah.
We do have permission from the Postmaster General to do that. We are widening completely to the east, so the existing curb line will stay where it is on the west side. We're widening on our side, and then you'll notice that as we approach 39th Street, we're expanding a taper. So that, to your point, if you're on northbound Cumner approaching 39th Street, you won't have to do that double turn.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot more fluid and significantly safer.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I got one more question, something that comes up all the time here. And I'm sure it's in the plan and I missed it, but how many trees are we adding on this project? 'Cause it certainly looks like there's a lot of trees on this thing.
There are a lot of trees. I don't know the exact
The answer's a
number.
lot.
So
Our landscape architect is trying to count as quickly as possible.
I mean, I think it'd be something a lot of people here would like to hear is a rough number, because it's something that we are currently discussing on the urban canopy, and we're getting a lot of stuff, and yeah.
So I'm not sure that we have the total number to quote. What I will mention on that topic, though, is that we're very proud of the conversation we had with staff regarding the necessary removal of existing trees along 39th Street, a handful of which were categorized as existing parkway trees that were subject to replacement requirements. We're happy that staff allowed us to make those replacements on site to benefit the property where the impact was being made. So I believe we added an additional We upsized 58 trees and added an additional 15 in common areas. So I think that's a huge win for everybody.
I have a related question. I know that the federal courts have kind of agreed with the EPA's relaxation on protections for wetlands, especially ones that don't flow into another natural water body. Do you have any guarantees to protect the wetlands, or is it just an homage to say that they're there?
No, so we actually have a formal permit application that was reviewed by DuPage County. They were the jurisdictional entity. So yeah, we are bound by our permit. We are preserving, enhancing, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. But we're enhancing the wetland because, as you've probably seen, the previous owner basically mowed large portions of the wetland. Kentucky bluegrass is not what you want to see in a wetland.
No.
So we're going to restore this to make it a wetland worthy of preservation, and the county allowed us to do the enhancement on site.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, can you maybe speak a little bit to how you're going to minimize impact to existing residents on the adjoining streets with the water service reconnections?
Sure. So for any 39th Street residents that are here tonight, you might have heard for the first time that in coordination with the village, we've been asked to extend water services. That sounds a lot more intrusive than it really is, and here's why. We're actually going to push the water services across the road. So we're not open trenching across 39th Street. We're using equipment to actually push that copper under the road. There will be a pit in each front yard parkway on the south side. But we're trying to keep the disturbances as small as possible. Any sidewalks, edges of driveways, any landscaping, sod repair, those are all restoration activities that we've addressed with the village to make sure that restoration can take place.
Terrific, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Anything else? Leslie, Martin, anything else come to mind?
Nope, nothing else, but I really, again, do appreciate all of the thought to the wetlands and trying to naturalize those a little bit more. So that's it.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, we're gonna go with no. All right, thank you. Dave, let's continue on.
And we will continue on with the last item on tonight's first reading agenda, which is a motion directing staff to negotiate a solid waste contract. This is a priority action item. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Baker as he gets the PowerPoint presentation ready to go. Here are the slides. So with that, I'd like to introduce our Deputy Village Manager, Mike Baker, who's been heading up the staff team, who's been working on the solid waste contract renewal. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Staff is requesting Village Council discussion that will allow for a motion to be placed on the September 16th active agenda, directing staff to negotiate terms of a solid waste contract. Once completed, the contract would come back to the Village Council for approval, with collection commencing under the new contract on April 1st, 2026. The staff report includes a summary of the proposals that were received from 5 vendors. The proposals include pricing on up to 3 separate service delivery options. One of the vendors, LRS, proposed an additional option, which is represented as option 4. Staff has reviewed the proposals and recommends against all options submitted by Waste Management and option 1 submitted by LRS for pricing related reasons. For the options proposed by SBC, staff identified concerns related to the transition process that this vendor outlined. For all the remaining vendors and options, which are shown in green, staff determined that their proposals are viable. At this stage of the proposal evaluation, staff believes that a discussion among the council is necessary to allow for further narrowing of vendors and options because of the policy-based value differences that are embedded in the vendor and option selection. Factors such as cost, service delivery preference, continuity, and environmentally sustainable attributes could all be considered. The proposals have also been reviewed and evaluated based on alignment with the village's recently adopted environmental sustainability plan. and input provided by the Environmental Concerns Commission. Here to summarize those sections of the staff report is the village's Environmental Sustainability Coordinator, Jason Michnick.
Thank you, Mike, and good evening, Council. So I have the pleasure of being here with you this evening because, as Mike mentioned, the Environmental Sustainability Plan does include a community-wide goal of reducing waste and diverting waste from landfills, especially through enhanced recycling and composting efforts in the community. There's also some additional goals related to the village making efforts to reduce both upstream and downstream environmental impacts through contracted services, including the solid waste contract that we're discussing this evening. So in an effort to support these goals, the RFP requested specific information from vendors so staff could evaluate those proposals relative to these intended goals. Included in the packet is a memo summarizing specific areas of the proposal that were received. I'd just like to highlight some of the key takeaways from that memo and can address things more specifically if there are questions. The first of those items that I'd like to highlight is something called the pay-as-you-throw program. This is something that was discussed by the ECC when they reviewed the RFP, and they really identified it as a top priority. So a pay-as-you-throw program, otherwise kind of what we call option 1 in the RFP, which is maintaining the sticker-based program, is something that basically the ECC felt incentivizes residents or rewards them for not producing trash on a weekly basis. They also raised a potential concern with pricing on an all-cart program, specifically that depending when you look at the price differences between the largest and the smallest carts, that they may not properly incentivize or disincentivize residents from selecting a smaller cart or producing less waste on a weekly basis. The next topic, which was very important, is recycling. So across all of the proposals, all vendors did propose a single stream recycling program. There was some overlap in the material recovery facilities that some of the vendors would use. They do contract with each other if they don't have those facilities or infrastructure regionally. And there was also some differences in the materials that would be accepted in a single stream program across the vendors that are on a table in the memo. The last topic here is organics recycling or composting. So this was specifically addressed in the Sustainability 2-year action plan because of its potential impact to really support that goal of diverting waste. It's estimated that somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of household waste is compostable, and finding a way to provide or enhance that service for residents is really kind of one of those programs or enhancements that may be able to further that goal the most. So all 5 vendors did include proposals that would allow for residents to include food scraps in a traditional yard waste cart. Only LRS and Republic allowed for food scraps to be included in a stickered yard waste bag. There were some differences across the proposals in the types of food scraps that could be included with composting. And Republic was the only vendor that specifically provided a solution for year-round organic collection for food scraps. So other vendors only had it while yard waste was going on. Republic proposed to work with a third-party food scrap-only composting firm from December through March. They specifically addressed some concerns with whether or not food scraps can freeze in an organics cart and make it difficult to collect. The village also actually received a proposal from a firm called Waste Not, which is another composting firm that would provide a standalone opt-in food collection service, basically in addition to our solid waste contract. Another element of this is thinking about the cost of what such a program would be for residents to participate in. And this varied based on sticker prices for those 2 firms that allowed that to be going to yard waste bags. The cost of opt-in cart pricing. We also had 2 proposals that had what I'll call inclusive, a three cart inclusive pricing. So this would be GROOT option 3 and LRS option 4, where they would have a 1 price for 3 carts that residents could opt into, as well as that, again, that standalone food scrap only program. I believe this covers the most important elements of the proposal that directly address how that service is provided in Downers Grove and the most important elements of this from the environmental standpoint. But as I mentioned, there's some additional analysis in that memo that I'm happy to address if there's specific questions. And with that, I will hand it back to Mike if there's any other questions, or back to council for your discussion.
Thanks, Jason. I'll just conclude by saying that the staff is available to answer any questions that council may have. If there are questions requiring response from vendors, staff will be capturing these questions and will request written responses from the vendors to include with the September 16th council packet. I do know there are a number of vendor representatives here in the audience this evening. Also, the visual that you're looking at on the screen is a page from the staff report. I'm able to go through that staff report to pull up any other visuals that council may like to refer to during the discussion and question portion of the meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mike. Let me just, before we get going here, let me pick up and carry the thread a little further that Mike was starting to lay out there. What we want to try and accomplish tonight is some collective feedback, hearing from each other about that feedback, and allowing our staff team to accumulate questions and also start to try and get to some, I don't know, consensus of plurality is really the right choice of words, but there's a lot of variables and a lot of opportunities for us to each have opinions on, where our values point us. And so trying to coalesce that into something is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So we shouldn't expect to do that tonight. And we shouldn't expect to be, negotiating tonight, even though we've got representatives here from some of these folks. So just sort of keep that in mind as the goals for tonight are for us to hear each other talk, reflect on these things, and ask questions. I'm sure we've got a lot of them. So anybody want to start off the conversation?
I'll just quickly, if I can,
go ahead.
I just want to get a clarification. Jason, you said that the LRS 4 option only allowed for the food scrapping during a certain part of the year. It's not all year round?
In the proposal, the LRS states that the way that it was presented is only a portion of the year while yard waste collection, but they would be open to.
Okay. Okay, that's a helpful clarification. I read it as all year round, but I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Leslie or Martin, either of you want to jump in?
I mean, I'm happy to jump in since this is something that was very, interesting and exciting to me, which, I don't think a lot of people can say that about solid waste contracts. But, when we went through our last contract, I was one of the ones who was in favor of going out to bid because I knew that we could push a little bit more on the environmental sustainability. And so I am happy that we're going through this process now. It's not going to come as a surprise that, reading through some of the information that we got, I do like the proposal in terms of environmental sustainability from LRS. I am a little disappointed that they are quite a bit higher than some of the others. And so if I had my way, I would like to see if we could negotiate to get them a little bit closer to some of the competitors. As some of you may know, I used to work at Lincoln Park Zoo, and I have taken a tour of the facility, and I do understand that there are third-party audits, and they recycle a lot more of the plastic that a lot of their competitors do. They have their recycling plants and their facilities on site and pay to dump their garbage elsewhere. There are people hand checking their recycling to make sure that nothing gets missed, fuel their facility by the compost that they make and using the biofuels. So it's a really innovative place that's pretty different than a lot of these larger waste companies that we see. And I think we see that with, again, the audits and the environmental sustainability pieces that we saw in the reports. So in terms of that, I think that fits those values the best. And I would be interested in looking at option 2 in particular with them and seeing if perhaps we could get a little bit closer, like I said, to maybe some of the competitors. I know that we've talked a lot about stickers and our community really does like them. We do have a good percentage of people who still do use them. But looking at this chart that we have up here, realistically, I think we're going to have to at some point in the near future here move away from them. And so if this is the time we do it, if we can couple that with a really high quality, environmentally sustainable contract, then I think that would be kind of an optimal compromise. And especially if we can get a decent senior discount. I know that they only offer the 35 gallon for seniors. So those were my initial thoughts. Interested in hearing what others have to say, but and if anybody else wants to know any more about my long tour of the facility, it truly is a unique place. And it is pretty impressive and different from some of the other facilities I've seen and heard of. So those are my initial thoughts. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Martin, you have any thoughts you want to share?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I've shared this with some of you before. So I'm very glad that we went out to bid on this because we don't do it often. We do it when it's appropriate, and it was entirely appropriate and timely. And it allows us an opportunity to sort of reassess the community's needs and the best way to meet those needs through our solid waste contract. My fundamental philosophy in approaching this, and again, as I've shared with some of you, is first and foremost, the most important thing is the service level to the community. It's the day in, day out that we have to deliver to our residents, and that is the most important thing of all. I don't right now see any reason to think that there would be any service level issues amongst the options that we have before us. The second criteria is primarily how well are we aligned with our environmental sustainability plan and the recommendations of the Environmental Concerns Commission. That would be the next deciding criteria in my mind. Third, while obviously super important, would be price. And that to me is more of a negotiating issue than anything else. We won't go into those details here tonight. I have long been a fan of pay as you throw, and that's one of the reasons why we have a sticker program, because as was stated earlier, it encourages people to be more mindful about what they dispose of and how they dispose of it. It also addresses the issue that has been around in the community for many, many years of a cart system in the minds of some is forced subsidization for those who dispose of a lot as opposed to those who dispose very little. If they have to use a cart, yes, they maybe get a smaller cart. Yes, maybe they're seniors and they get a discount. But anyway, you face it, you're putting everyone in the same box and you're requiring them to basically pay more or less the same in order to support a system where you have varying degrees of disposal of refuse. So stickers, as much as some people hate them, we know that a very sizable portion of the community loves them and doesn't want to give them up. So I'm very reluctant to give up on option one, but option two would probably be the next thing I would want to look at in that respect. And again, would be most favorable of the proposals that are most aligned with the environmental sustainability plan that we spent a great deal of time and received a great deal of community input in order to put together. And I take very seriously the recommendations and the opinions of the Environmental Concerns Commission. We had a long meeting not too long ago where we wanted to leverage and implement the expertise of our boards and commissions more. Here's a great opportunity to do exactly that. One other thing that I will say is that I'm very intrigued by the organics recycling program. One thing I think would be very important is to have someone at, for example, LRS speak to the marketing efforts on behalf of communicating that program to the community, because I think it could have tremendous benefit and tremendous support. So one of the things I'd like to hear about is, for anyone offering an organics recycling program, how they would propose to market that and educate the community on it, because I think that could be very important. Some of us do a fair amount of that privately, and it's a terrific program. And to the extent that we could expand it more broadly, I think that marketing efforts would be an integral part of that. That's what I have for now. Obviously, this is a discussion, so I look forward to hearing what others have to say.
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful to sort of lay out where your priorities lie without getting too terribly specific. Tammy?
Yeah, much of how I prioritize is going to sound quite similar to Commissioner Tully. First and foremost, no surprise to me, is alignment with our environmental sustainability plan. I also have deep concerns for the elderly and those on a limited budgeted in our community who any extra charge could be very onerous on them when it might not be onerous or even noticed to others. And I also am aware that many people still use stickers and rely on them, and it's a weekly trip to the grocery store. And I think that would be kind of a really tough adjustment for a big chunk of our community. And so I'd say those, in my estimation, are the top priorities. Of course, overall pricing matters too, but that's what negotiations are for.
Mike?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think I read in some of Republic's materials that in their in Elgin they've gotten close to a third of the residents participating in the composting. So I thought that was encouraging and higher than I thought it would be. So, which was excellent. So I'd be interested too, as Martin shared, hearing a little bit more about how they get people interested. Speaking about the stickers, I'll just say that I'm a sticker guy. I've been a sticker guy. I can tell you that over time, the cost savings that come with using the stickers has shrunk considerably, to the point at which that even I am thinking, if we continued on the path we're on right now, that I'm probably gonna step away from it pretty soon myself, because it just isn't as much of a cost benefit as there used to be. And as much as our ECC had a conversation about the pay as you throw program being something that encourages people to maybe not throw as much away. I also think that it may, in fact, encourage people to throw things away in their recycling that maybe they shouldn't be. And so I don't know that we've got much data to, prove either premise. I suspect that we could take a look at how Downers Grove as a sticker community, how do we compare to some of our neighbors who are not sticker communities, and what's the level of recycling participation per capita, and is there an appreciable difference, right? Because I'm not sure that I'm buying the fact that the stickers really are encouraging people to throw less away. And if we're really concerned about that, Amnesty Day. So ECC said that they don't recommend continuing with an Amnesty Day program, though they understand its value. Instead, and this is what I kind of thought was smart, was alternatives such as drop-off locations and recycling events should be developed. A recommendation to use the cost of an Amnesty Day towards recycling events such as Greener Grove event and working with groups like Scarce and such. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, because some of us really love Amnesty Day. However, I'm somebody who's really never put anything out on Amnesty Day. And I don't much like the fact that I'm subsidizing the cost of people throwing away lots of stuff when they want to, right? So I know that some people really love it, but there seems to be, I think, more of a need for some balance. And I think the proposals that we're getting here start to speak to some of that, where you're allowed to maybe put out a couple of white goods, things like that, more often. E-waste and hazardous waste, ECC talked about quite a bit there too, and I thought this was really interesting, where they suggested that we should weigh the net benefit versus impacts of additional miles traveled. So, running trucks around all the time to pick up electronics waste, just for electronics waste, there's a impact to that too, environmentally, right? And so alternatively, a drop-off location similar to the Naperville facility could be investigated, or these services could be provided at recycling events. So I thought that was pretty smart. Love the idea of being able to compost with the leaf pickup. I thought that's a pretty smart idea and something that I'm very much interested in. Of course, it'd be better if we could do it year round, but just getting it during the season wouldn't be bad either. Let's see here. I agree with staff's analysis here of the options. I actually, contrary to what Commissioner Tully said, I actually do have very serious concerns about service level that would be delivered by SBC. Staff identified issues with the transition process that are very concerning to me, and with that, I think SBC is off the table for me. Waste management is off the table for me. Probably not, Groot, maybe there's something to talk about there with option 2 and option 3, maybe. But continuity of service is really attractive to me. I think minimizing disruption to our residents, and that's something, so in an ideal world, we work out exactly what we wanted and get a great deal with Republic, right? That would be, I think, ideal. But LRS is really compelling here. And while I am concerned about costs going up, if we're receiving benefit for those additional costs, and that's certainly valuable. And people are incurring costs right now for who want to take advantage of electronics recycling, things like that. That if those things are subsumed by this contract, there's a trade-off there that maybe is favorable to our residents. There was something else I wanted to mention, but it's escaping me right now. So if I can reserve a chance to talk again, Mayor, I appreciate it.
Not you, everybody else but you. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I greatly appreciate the feedback of my fellow commissioners and looking forward to your feedback too, Mayor. To me, I sort of broke this down into two things, and I appreciate staff, all of the analysis that was provided. There's a lot of options here, and sometimes that can be a little overwhelming, and I think you guys did a great job of helping make it a little less overwhelming, so I do appreciate that. For me, I think it boils down to basically two options. I think the way I feel about it is I agree the service that we've been getting has been good. I think we have had a good partnership with Republic. I think option 1 is the cost-effective solid waste removal, fairly bare bones in comparison to what we are looking for. That's option 1 in my mind. Option 2 is LRS option 4, which to me is far more in line with our environmental sustainability plan, and I think the kinds of things that we are looking to do. And you put it great, Commissioner Davenport. It's the value that we're looking for. I think the others, just to be candid, the risk of the switching sounded like there was some concerns with one group, and then to me, I feel like there's just the two stand out in my mind. So Republic option 1, it keeps a sticker system. I think that's important for some in the community. It's familiar. Republic service is what we've had. But option 4, which I think I'm more leaning towards, really takes us in a different direction. It absolutely bundles the organics and the yard waste. I would be very interested in that being all year round. It does include some bulk disposal, which I also want to address, and just seems to have a far stronger recycling infrastructure. The amount that they're recapturing and using seems to be much higher. Commissioner Sadowski-Fugate talked about the technology. We've had some offline conversations that were pretty impressive to me. I think on the financial side, the gap may not be as large as it looks. When we look at roughly average across all of our residents, if we, from option A, which let's be clear, Republic is raising their prices for this new contract. So we are not choosing between staying where we are in pricing. There is an increase in cost there. And they all have a percentage of increase each year. But it's about $3 a household. Increase would be option LRS 4 versus Republic 1. No doubt that option is more expensive for the sticker user. But I do think it's important to note, we don't have, at least I haven't, we don't have an ability, I don't think, to track sticker users, how many stickers they're using around town, right? So the closest I could find was an EPA study that looked at sticker usage. And there are about 55% light sticker users, 2 to 4 a month. But the other 45% are 6 stickers, 8 stickers, and more. So when you're a 2 to 4 sticker user, yes, being put into a cart is going to be a price jump. But if you're at 6 and 8, option 4 actually is about flat and can actually add some savings to those who are using more than that. So I did a whole math analysis on it using weighted averages and things like that. I won't bore you too much with that unless you ask for it.
No.
But good boy, I second that. But the bottom line is I just think we have to be careful about looking at just the cart numbers in here because it is weighted. We have to look at usage there. To me, I think, as was, you may have said it, it's what's the value to me, or our values in this. To me, the LRS seems to do a lot of things that we are interested in doing. So I am certainly aware of the impact potentially on some of our residents, seniors perhaps. I want to just be clear, it's not all the sticker users, so that 37% is not all using just 2 or 4. Mm-hmm. Mike, sounds like you're using about 15, 16 a week?
2 to 4.
2 to 4, okay.
But I'm fast approaching senior residency status.
Well, we're going to work on that. So I think we should make sure we're considering that as we look at this. I may have a few more things to add, but I think I'll leave it at that there, and we can go from there.
Rob, you got anything?
Yeah, so I think what we're looking here is value versus service, just exactly what Martin said too. It's hard to argue with the pay as you throw with the stickers. With 45% of Downers Grove either being stickers or 35-gallon garbage cans. The question is what's the gap there, and how many of those are seniors, and with those senior discounts, which I'm a very big fan of, is that making that gap up too? Maybe half of our pay-as-you-throws are seniors, and they're actually going to get a cost savings. I don't know. It'd be nice to get feedback, but I have no clue how to find that out. I think we do need to give value to staying with the service we know, and I think in general have had really good luck with, have a good relationship with. I am in favor of exploring more of these green things in these contracts. So the composting, I think, is very enticing by these companies. I don't know how much people are going to be willing to pay, though, to actually have these services. So a lot of them are a step up, and I think once you start telling people, hey, you can do this positive thing, but it's going to cost you extra, I think most people are still going to say, well, I'd rather save money. So hopefully not, but I again, would like feedback. And then obviously I agree with the majority of the recommendations that we're getting from staff here. So, I mean, I like the carts with the extra benefits. It seems like for us to get the additional benefits, we have to have the cart program. They're not going to give those with the sticker program with the pay-as-you-throw, right? Is that what we're seeing across the board? So, Sorry, I meandered there a little
No,
bit. Yeah, so if I'm reading this right, if we do pay as you throw, we're not also looking at the additional services with the composting and that stuff.
correct. The enhancements were really intended to be represented as you got into the option 2, 3, and then with option 4 is where those appear.
Yep.
In terms of the services provided.
So are we getting better services, removing pay as you throw and actually doing more? So.
I've got just some questions that don't need to be answered now, but probably they're some kind of a thing that deserves reaction from Jason, most likely you. Electronics and household hazardous waste. Do we have any sense, maybe our bidders can tell us at some point down the road, but in the absence of opportunities, regular opportunities for those, are people just utilizing the trash? Is that a normal thing? In other words, are people stacking them up in their garage and hauling them to Burr Ridge and looking for the once a month or once a quarter thing in Naperville, or are they just dumping them in their trash? One of the things I'd like to understand is and maybe we can't, but I wish I could understand a little better on whether offering those opportunities are fixing a behavior or making an existing behavior more convenient. You know what I mean? I mean, if we really thought that was a lot of that was going to the trash, I'd become way more interested. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd love some feedback on that. And then do we think it's likely case, again, you don't have to answer this right now, but when we look at option 1 versus 2 or 3, just look at option 1 versus option 2. Are we really sort of subsidizing stickers with everybody else? And there's at some point, the truck's got to come down the street, whether or not they pick anything up or not.
Yep.
And so there's that jump, that option 1 is more expensive than option 2 with very similar service level. And I just kind of wonder if that's part of what's going on. I know the pay-as-you-throw concept has some merit because people do, I think, when they have to pay for it, get a little more thoughtful about what they're throwing away. But I wonder if we are also subsidizing the sticker people. That kind of seems like maybe that's the case. The waste not, want not thing is really attractive to me. If we look at that table, if you can pull that up, I'm concerned about the cost. Chris, you got some good questions about the cost. I'm not sure I know enough about the percent of users that fall into the categories, right, to model that up. But looking at that as an option out there, it's just attractive to me. It would allow us, one thing is it might allow us to pick a lower cost option and give people a vehicle by which to start engaging that kind of behavior. And then obviously if they did, we could reconsider stuff down the road. But what do we know about waste not, want not? Well, I guess I keep saying it's want not. That's not really their name, waste not. But do we know a lot about, when people get to using them, do they keep using them? Do they see growth over time? Is there enough experience with waste not to know over the course of 3 years or 5 years in any one community? Do they experience a lot of growth, or do they get a bunch of buy-in on day one and then they level out? I'd be interested to know a little bit more about their sort of take-up rates. What's that?
You can certainly reach out to them and ask that question.
Yeah, I'd like to understand that. And then this user count thing, probably aren't going to get real specific, but when we try and determine what we're doing in terms of cost, if we had any more insight into, I know we got sticker numbers, but like low volume, sticker only, average cart, sort of percentage totals, I might get a better understanding. If I've missed it, I apologize. So if it's in here, just highlight it for me. But that cost is part of it, and understanding if we're impacting a lot of people or a few people and what the waste not opportunity might provide is interesting to me.
Mayor, can we just interrupt you right there?
Yeah, please.
I think we missed your question on you were talking about information?
Yeah, so if I missed it, I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing it. The categories that we have, so we're looking at the table it was in the original packet. There's an updated one provided today.
This one.
Yeah, we have
that
low,
one. Okay,
low
we'll pull that
senior
up.
sticker only, average
How many
cart,
people are
high
each?
cart. So those numbers are fine if you knew how many of, how much is that? So are 90% of your users high cart
So
users, or are 90% of them low volume?
this has come up on almost all the Monday calls when we go through and call each council member, what's important to you, what information can we help provide? And I think it was mentioned by one of the commissioners earlier tonight, because of the nature of the sticker purchases and usage, we don't have any further information available than what's here.
Okay.
We don't know how many.
All right. I hate that. Can't you just make something up, Dave?
I mean, the EPA did do a study on this, and they did say that the 2 to 4 sticker is around 55%. And then
Yeah, I was looking for these guys that are not using stickers.
oh, you're asking about non-sticker?
Non-stickers, like
Yeah,
how?
we have that.
We have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of the percentage of households that use each cart? Is that what you're?
Percentage of households that are using each of these categories.
There you go.
There's 2 to 4 that you're talking about, and about 8 to
Sticker.
10.
Post stickers, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, got it. It's up there now.
That's not the sticker thing, though.
That's just a percentage.
Right.
Are you looking for the break?
I'm looking for what I think you, the
Yeah.
EPA is suggesting, but
Yeah.
we don't really know. And
We
so
don't
I'm
know.
trying to look at the table and figure out how that, what that means in terms of dollars to our users. The other thing I think is important here is, for me to understand, is the option 1. Somebody alluded to it. I don't know if it was Rob or Leslie. Somebody alluded to we may not have the sticker option for a lot longer. Is that what's going on, or do people pay as you throw? Seems to be an important thing to our general premise of how we're going at some of our sustainability goals, and there's several ways to do that. Incentivizing the cost of container sizes, to be sure, but stickers is a big part of that. And I'm just wondering if this is our last chance to keep that going. Why did some people not even want to offer that, for instance? Root and Waste Management don't even want to participate in that world, right? Is that because they're leading the trend, because there's pieces of their operations that no longer make that valuable? Or I don't understand that, but I'd like to better, because I kind of hate to get rid of something that a chunk of our populace is using and our environmental sustainability group says is important and our plan drives us towards. And then the last thing, and again, I don't know if there's a way to quantify this, but back a little deeper in the chart, we talk a little bit about the organizational sustainability efforts of each of these groups. And there's some big differences there. And I'm just wondering if there's any way to quantify any of that. Somebody made the comment earlier about driving around picking up recycling and whether the additional trucks made sense or not. That kind of is in the same category. There's some, if you just looked on paper, for instance, SBC looks like a bargain, but they don't seem to stand out in terms of organizational sustainability. And how valuable this kind of a thing is, I'd like to better understand. I just don't understand it right now. I mean, I know what it is, I just don't know how to quantify it. So if you guys had any thoughts on that, yeah, that's my list of questions. Not a lot of answers, more questions. Mike?
Thanks. Yeah, so things I remembered what I was, so one was particularly being concerned about the cost to our seniors. And so that remains a priority for me as well, because a little, as Commissioner Sarver stated, even a little change can be significant impact there. And then, yes, I agree. The stickers, I think the sticker program has been subsidized basically by everybody else, because that truck's going down the street, whether I'm putting putting my can out there or not. And so, but I'm not currently paying for that, right? It's going to be there for me though. If I need it, it's going to be there. So, and it also occurs to me that when you ask the question why maybe a couple companies don't even want to do it, I know that just watching, right? I have a different can than everybody else. The guy's got to get out of the truck. He's got to take the lid off. He's got to pull the sticker, rip it, whatever, and so it takes more time as well to run a route, I think, with a significant number of people using stickers. And so there's some efficiency gained by not doing that. And so I agree on that. And I was the one that asked for that additional line to get put into our chart here because I wanted to see what the comparison was for somebody who switched to a 35-gallon cart. Because if you're putting stickers on your garbage cans, you're currently using about a 35-gallon, it's like 33-gallon garbage can. So chances are, I would think that people who are stickering and on the low end, on the 2 to 4, most likely would be wanting to just, hey, I just want a 35-gallon. So some concern about whether that's going to be an option with LRS or not. Is that actually an option?
Their proposal limits 35-gallon containers only to seniors.
Only to seniors. Yeah. So that's something I'd like to see if we're looking at LRS to get them to expand that to the general population as well. Thank you, Mayor.
I didn't comment on amnesty, but I just remind everybody how much Bob hates Amnesty Day. Got to get that in the record as long as we're all talking about it. It just seems like such a disincentive to do the right thing. Leslie, Martin, anything that come to mind as you're listening to us? Leslie?
Yeah, I will agree with you on, I'm also not a huge fan of Amnesty Day. I don't actually think I've ever taken advantage of it either, especially when you don't know where it's going. I know that's a question I've actually asked of staff, if we could ask any of our vendors, if any of these vendors, if they offered one, if there was an option, if any of those items would actually go to recycling, or if there were any metals, that would be sold, or if there would then be any sorting of any of the amnesty things, because that would be the only way in which I would be okay with an amnesty day, is if it weren't all going into a landfill. But outside of that, I am also not comfortable with it. As Chris talked about option 4, it really does intrigue me more in terms of the environmental sustainability side of things. It does make sense from our goals. But again, as we talk about, the cost to seniors, I would just, want to see what we can do to get some sort of a senior discount, or try and keep that cost a little bit down for the folks who might be, struggling or on a fixed income and not really a big user of the system, if they do have to switch to that 35-gallon. So those are just the things I'm kind of trying to struggle with in my mind. But that was all I had to add after hearing everybody else talk. Thank you.
Martin, anything come to mind or jot some notes down?
Yes. I mean, I'll just reiterate, picking up on what Commissioner Davenport said, that proven service level is first and foremost, and ability to provide high level, high quality, consistent service and customer service to our residents is first and foremost. So that would be a immediate filter. Then number 2 is alignment with the environmental sustainability plan and the recommendations of the Economic Concerns Commission. And third being price again. I reiterate that because number 1, if the majority is aligned with going away from stickers for whatever reason, I think we need to make sure that real possibility is effectively communicated to the community, because, and I'm going to come to Amnesty Day in a second, regardless of what one may think about it, it is something that is a fair amount of support in the community for and has been historically. Not to say that people couldn't be convinced that there's a better way, and that if Commissioner Davenport is right, you're actually saving money or they're better off under a container system than a sticker system. But that just begs the question of making sure that we communicate, this is something that we might be doing. This is why we're doing it, and we invite public feedback on that. Obviously, tonight's the beginning of that conversation, but just because this is something that affects everybody in the village on a day-to-day basis, I just think it's something we may need to make sure that if we're going to move to a different approach, and we have all these great reasons for doing that, that is communicated and that is educated before it actually clicks in, because otherwise I think there might be some pushback on that. Turning to Amnesty Day, I also frankly could do without Amnesty Day, but I will tell you it's something that also has been historically significant. Once upon a time, people actually wanted to have more than one. I agree with what's been said is I would rather do away with it and instead direct people to find solutions for what they thought was the value of Amnesty Day in a different, more environmentally respectful way. So I don't have an answer for that right off the bat, but I think a number of things have been said where we could achieve the same thing in a different way. But again, I think it's all about messaging, communicating, making sure people know that this is coming. None of us want to be sitting here in a month and all of a sudden we have a packed village hall wanting to know why we're getting rid of the beloved stickers in Amnesty Day. I think it's incumbent upon us to explain that this is actually a better approach and it's consistent with our environmental sustainability plan, et cetera, so that people understand that there's a very good and positive reason for moving in a different direction. So that's kind of off topic, Mayor, but just a little bit of free advice.
That's good caution. Thank you, Mark. Others? Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple things. Rob, you were talking about sort of add-ons and wanting to, like it would cost more. Just to be clear, in the LRS option 4, it doesn't cost more. And if you're a 65-gallon user and you also want yard waste, if you go with a different option than that, it could cost twice as much than the LRS 4. So, and I think where I'm struggling a bit is two reasons why I think we like the sticker program. One, we have the cost potential savings that we have not quite quantified, but maybe we all have a gut feeling that that's a way to do it. I also understand that there is I guess maybe coming from the ECC and other sources, like if you have a pay-as-you-throw, that generally helps reduce trash. Okay, that's the concept in my mind. So it's cost, and it's also potentially, I think it sounds like, I'm not an expert, I'll defer to the ECC and you, Jason, sounds like that, because that was the top priority of the ECC, right? Keep the pay-as-you-throw. I think the challenge, though, is in doing that, it's very difficult to bolt on some of the other things that we want, right? So we've got this trade-off in my mind, and I'm trying to figure out the trade-off of, okay, 25% reduction in, if we look at the organic food waste, I think if I'm understanding that right, that 25% of my garbage is typically compostable stuff. And if I could have a system, option number 4, that makes it simple and it's systematic, then what is the trade-off there? So I have given up the sticker program that has this idea that it's reducing trash, but I'm gaining this 25% reduction of my trash output going in a landfill. Same thing with yard. If we go with option 4, we get the yard waste included, right? So some may say, well, why don't people just leave their yard waste on their lawn, don't have to throw away the clippings, and I understand that. But if they have an option, it isn't like it's going in a landfill. My understanding from what LRS uses it for is actually quite purposeful and fertilizing and all the things that Jason can probably list off. So to me, it feels more like it aligns with how we're trying to move us in a way that's systematic. I think it makes it easier for our residents. And I don't share the same view on Amnesty Day, not because I don't understand the idea of, well, look at, we're seeing all of this trash on one day, and there's this, what are we doing? We're burying this stuff. But to me, I think you only own so many washing machines. You only own so many couches. Those are the things that I think we should have a solution for. And I would much rather give it to a company that has maybe a potential of doing something with it in a positive way than two things, either doing it in a way that isn't, or, I mean, we haven't talked at all about how illegal dumping is impacted by that, right? I don't know how that impacts our community, but I'm sure there's a lot of people dumping paint cans and things in places they shouldn't because they don't have a simple or a straightforward option. Not that that excuses their behavior, but I'm just to make a point here. I think that's what I liked about the LRS 4. I think it gives a simple and kind of a complete option for our town. Yes, the cost benefits are worse for those who are paying as you go. They are better for a part of our community that is in the middle, right? And maybe you're on the higher end. So overall, I think that cost thing we just have to keep in mind. But what I've heard everyone say is we want seniors and low-income folks to have an opportunity to keep their costs down. Okay, LRS, show us how we do that. Show us how we do it. Yeah. We want to work with you, or give us that. You know, you've heard us talk about that. You've heard all of us talk about that. So we got a proposal. Maybe there's some things that can be tweaked to meet that expectation. So that's, again, where I'm mostly leaning, if it isn't obvious. But
a couple additional questions, Dave. I'm looking at page in the PDF, page 7. I'd like to understand, again, not tonight, LRS option 4 says yard waste / compost opt-in. And so I'd like to understand what that means. So it's not automatic that everybody that's putting yard waste out can put compost. They have to somehow notify LRS. I'd like to know that. Then Amnesty Day cleanup on that page 9, I think. I'm not sure I understand LRS's comments there. Proposed a cost of $175 per hour and $60 per ton for year 1, with costs increasing under the contract. So we wouldn't know the cost, and then that would somehow get assessed. Then it says LRS proposed not to include this service under option 4. The residents could put 2 bulk items per week. So I'm not sure I understand LRS's approach to Amnesty Day and how that would actually play out with billing and such. It seems like option 4 LRS has got some interest because of its environmental benefits. I agree with Chris, there may be frankly some trade-offs there that are valuable to us, but I'm not sure I understand this, so more details on that would help.
The way I interpreted that is if we want an Amnesty Day, that's what we're going to pay for it. But because option 4 offers bulk items every week, it would reduce the need for one because you're not waiting for one day to put more stuff out.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate, but we can confirm.
That's how I interpreted it as well.
Yeah.
Which I also like.
So if you did 175 an hour and 60 a ton, you wouldn't know what that's going to be, right? I mean, it's not option 4. I get that. That's
right. Yeah.
One,
An
2, and
Amnesty
3.
Day.
But if you did an Amnesty,
which how do you feel about Amnesty Day, Mayor? I'm unclear.
She loves it.
Yeah, well, there's some good cautions that a lot of residents do either expect it or expect a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I need to understand how that works with them. Others? Mike?
Yeah, so I want to piggyback a little bit and maybe offer a little more clarity on some of the things that Commissioner Gilmartin shared. First of all, that ECC preference for the pay-as-you-throw is all predicated on the premise that it encourages people to throw away less, which is an unproven premise. So I just want to throw that out there again. and then the chart that the staff did for us here was super, because if I look at the LRS option 4, for instance, if I'm doing a 35-gallon option on that, the comparatives, basically it's going to cost me $7 more a month. Okay, it'd be one thing if we were talking apples to apples, but right now I'm putting my sticker on my garbage can and I'm throwing some things in recycling. With this, I'm getting a lot more service. Plus, I don't have to go to Jewel or Wanamaker's
or the
village hall to buy stickers, and then that week that I forgot to buy the stickers, going and trying to find someone else on my street that will loan me a sticker who's up still because I'm putting it out late at night, right? So it'd be worth the $7 to me, not to I suspect, as Commissioner Tully shared, this is something we'll need to explain and get feedback from our residents on. But that's my take on it. That if we're getting a little more value, actually more convenience, and that it makes some sense to make this change. So I'm definitely looking to move beyond option 1, to be clear, and I'm also intrigued by the LRS option 4.
And that's why
the gold standard here.
I get a little.
But the cost, I'm not excited about the cost.
Right,
so.
but 2 and 3.
Yeah.
No savings.
There's no savings there. It's
Right.
actually
Really not.
costs more.
Right.
Can you circulate that EPA stuff? you
Sure.
got?
Yeah. Happy to.
That would help.
Happy to. Yeah.
Anyone else for the moment? Leslie, anything else for the moment on this one?
Just one more small point. When we were talking about the amnesty thing, it made me remember that with the option 4, if you put out those 2 bulk items, the other benefit to that is if there are recyclable materials in there and you're spreading it out every week, if you can only put 2 things out. And so it does increase the likelihood then that those materials would actually be recycled, because you're not getting like a huge influx of items all at once. I have to imagine that's probably the value of having those 2 items all in 1 week, but that would be something that I'd be interested in hearing as well. So that is one question that I have, is if in option 4, is that the rationale behind allowing 2 bulk items per week, is just to try to kind of ration out how much people are putting in there so that they potentially could recycle some of that material. So I do want to know with those bulk items if they are recycling any of that material in option 4. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a good thing to point out. Thank you for that. Martin, anything?
It is a good thing to point out, and I would reiterate the same inquiry, because that would be a horse of a different color, so to speak.
Just had one other question. How will LRS or any of these determine who qualifies for the senior discount? Like, how will they verify that? I only ask that just in case the council also wants to look at income as well as looking at discounts, and how we might be able to do that as well. Any other interest in that?
Yeah.
In terms of looking at low income?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So I think that's a good question.
Yeah, we can get that.
Cool. Okay, we're done. I feel bad you're sitting over there by yourself.
Just chilling.
We have several questions for Mr. Mitchnick right now.
All right, we'll wrap that up for tonight.
Mayor, did you, are we sure we wrapped up? Do we want to do anything further on this item?
Well, you have something in mind, so remind me.
Any public comments on items on the first reading?
Think the public might want to comment on this, Dave? Yeah, thank you. That was, we kind of went through those items on the subdivision pretty quickly with some comment early on. So is there any public comment on this item in particular, others that we went past this evening? We will talk about it again, of course. Mr. R., come on down.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Steve Ruffalo, 4616 Linscott. I want to, thank you for all your discussions tonight. There's been some great ideas thrown out there on the table. I'd like to hit a couple of them, but also, reemphasize that the ESP really talks specifically about waste reduction for the community, for, dropping what we're putting into the landfills through recycling, through composting, whatever the means is, but to bring down how much we're putting in the hole in the ground. I want to speak to be as creative and innovative as we can be in that solution. I think it was unfortunate that part of the RFP didn't ask for an RFID option. We a lot of discussion tonight about pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-throw kind of program. That's a higher tech one. That's not a tag system. I know there's been some questions about how it works, but it is operating in a neighboring community. So, it's out there. And if we're talking about how this contract may go perhaps 6 years out, is there a way to look at, can we build in, all right, we have a tag system now and we migrate to a more high-tech pay-as-you-throw program in 2 years? If we're bringing in a new vendor who's going to be bringing in, having to purchase equipment to take up our contract, and I know that's why we talk about a 6-year contract. Well, how about talking to them about purchasing equipment that allows that sort of a program to happen? So encouraging savings, I love, but I disagree with some of the comments about that the carts or the toters are subsidizing the stickers. I think if you look at the way they priced it, as it requires the truck to go down, all of a sudden the tags drop when you don't have the sticker system. So I don't think that is necessarily a true statement. I do feel that if we work with trying to reduce waste and by encouraging smaller carts or toters, we do that. And perhaps then the vendors can look at larger routes so they're even a day less in collection. If we can cut our overall volume, we could be saving a whole day of having these trucks drive through our communities. So, let's look at some of the ways in which, 6 years from now, 12 years from now, where are we at? To be quite honest, on recycling side, what's different? What's new? The table, I don't think it's in the report here, but it was in the online one about recycling. They said yes to everything. Is plastic number 4 collectible? The what is that one? LDPE? Yeah, but single-use plastic bags is number 4. Is that acceptable? I know, but usually those are MRF killers. So I'm shocked that if it's acceptable in some way or another, that's great. I think by reducing flexible plastics, we can reduce 25% of our waste stream too. We talked about it would be food waste, but could we do it with flexible plastics as well? And make some, that's a 50% drop perhaps. Yeah, I'm throwing some numbers out there, but it's possible. Then, trucks could take a whole day off. Routes could get bigger, and we save the environmental impact of all those driving around town. I also would like to discuss how organic wastes are looked at. Yard waste and food waste, yes, they're organic waste, but it's really 2 different animals. And during the summer, right now, I think I can put my food waste in my compost bin. I have a home compost. I don't need to put stuff at the curb. But over the winter, perhaps I would like, or even if I have a greater opportunity to put meat waste and others from my kitchen that I don't put in my home compost pile, but maybe I'd love to see them not go into the landfill, but I would participate in a organic waste kitchen style. Just some thoughts to put out there. I did have a couple other real quick, I think. Definitely, and you've heard me say this before, but the Amnesty Day just doesn't work from a sustainability standpoint. And I'm glad to hear that nobody was really on board with option 3, which had the free leaf pickup, because you're just subsidizing. There are options, so I'm glad we're not looking at that. But some of the discussions about e-waste and household hazardous waste, if there is a good drop-off system, if there's some other option, just creativity, imagination, how can we address these concerns. I don't want to see them going the hole in the ground. Yes, I'm sure there are people that are putting it into their waste can, and it may not be get caught. If it gets caught, yeah, that's a different story. But, you know, as a kid, I remember the guy next door dumping his oil down the storm sewer. I mean, that's how bad it used to be. We're much better today, but it's still out there. So think about other communities in the area do have monthly programs for drop-off, and I think at no cost, but I could be mistaken on that. But, you know, it's getting it out of the waste stream at some point. I love that some of the local organizations are partnering up and we're doing recycling programs, but I'm not sure that that's real sustainable, at least in the current model. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Flood. I'm the president of SBC Waste Solutions. And I want to thank village staff for the process that they did, and also the village for allowing all of us to put this RFP together for you guys. And with that said, you know, just listening to you guys tonight, we're kind of listening like, you know, obviously with all the options we put together with you guys, we're the lowest responsible bidder. And I strongly recommend you guys to contact our references and our local communities that we service now. We recently took over the city of Berwyn, which is over 20,000 homes last year, and also Westchester, which is another 7,000 homes. Those transition processes were done smoothly. I noticed there's a lot of concerns about our transition process, and we're marked in yellow. We take great pride in service. That's our most important thing, is servicing the residents. Your residents, I consider them a neighbor to me. I live 2 communities over. 2 of my partners here live 2 communities over. We live right here. We're driving through your neighborhoods. We're driving through your streets, and we're meeting those residents. We do Resident of the Month programs where we stop and knock on the door and talk to those people. We become a part of the community. We become a part of your events. We're here, we're in your events. And, I know there's a lot about economic and all that stuff, but our main thing is becoming a part of your community and providing service. And with that said, I know there was things discussed about how we don't offer compost in the yard waste bags. That question wasn't asked us about that. We offered the cart program, but we do allow compost in the yard waste bags. With that being said, though, we don't strongly recommend it. Animals tend to get into that material. They rip it up. It gets into the streets. We try to keep that material out, but we do allow it. I've reached out to a couple of our municipalities that we currently service now, and none of them said they've been contacted about the transition processes. So I'm just a little concerned about how the village has concerns about our transition when 2 of our largest towns that we just took over within the past 6 to 12 months haven't been contacted about that process. So I urge all of you to please contact the city of Berwyn, Westchester, the village of Bloomingdale, Winfield, Indianette Park, a lot of these communities, the village of Broadview that we're servicing, because they will tell you, and they will tell you strongly, that we had those city of Berwyn, 20,000 homes we had done in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Waste Management had their carts out, we had ours in, and we were already servicing the town. So I did put a process together for the village. It was an estimated process. It's not a guaranteed process. I always try to extend it out further, and then we execute faster, and we look better that way. So if they were concerned that I said it was going to be a 4 to 6 week process, I always do that, setting the expectations low. And when we deliver on time and we finish faster than expected, we look that much better to the community. Also, just on trash and recycling options, we have different color carts. A lot of haulers use the same color carts. For recycling, we use green. For trash, we use black. This helps eliminate confusion with residents. We're all a color community. We all see colors. People like to throw away on colors. They see green, they see recycling, they see black, they see trash. It helps a lot. And a lot of vendors here use the same color cards for all, maybe with different style lids or different color lids. The main thing I heard a lot from the residents also is e-waste and paint removal. And you guys don't want to have a separate truck just driving around. That's not the case with what we proposed. We proposed an unlimited e-waste removal and unlimited paint and hazardous waste removal for your residents. They contact their office and they schedule that with the residents. So we route that based on what's best for the resident ahead of time. So we're not just driving around town wasting fuel looking for items. Those residents would contact our office. We route it with the resident what's best for them during that week or that month. So, for example, if Miss Jones lives on Johnson Street, she can schedule it for 2 weeks in advance to have a TV or a white good removed. We're the only vendor who offered that service free for your residents. They don't have to wait a year, or if they're on vacation or they're gone and they missed that event. We're the only vendor who offered that to be year-round free and unlimited. That's a great service to your community, and you guys should seriously consider adding that on. As I said before, talking to our current references, not one of them said they've been contacted. So I've reached out to them saying, have you heard from anything about a reference? Not what they've all communicated back to me that nobody's reached out to them. So as I said in my emails, please contact our references and reach out to them. They will tell you how it's been with us so far. We're a younger company, but we're a growing, great company, and our main promise is service, and my main thing is to become a part of your community, and that's what we're about. SBC strives ourselves on family, and our drivers are a part of family. Also, we have 5 drivers who currently used to drive in Downers Grove with Republic that work for us now. So they know the community, and they're very excited. When they heard Downers Grove was out to bid, they're like, maybe I can get my route back and come back and service the community that we were in. 5 of those drivers are currently working for us that flipped over, and they know the town very well. So I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity. We appreciate you, and thank you, staff, and thank you guys for your time. Thank you.
I didn't plan to come here and talk tonight, but I'm going to talk. I've been in the garbage business for 45 years. First time I've been to a village meeting where you go out for proposal, but you don't even interview the vendors. Your website says you want exceptional service.
Tell us your name.
Brian Flood. Exceptional service and fiscal responsibility. Recently on the news, LRS drivers are jumping on the trucks and driving through stores on LaGrange Road.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah. Safety is very.
Listen, stop talking
Yeah.
for a second. Listen to me, please.
Yeah.
You get 5 minutes like everybody else gets.
Yeah.
Don't really want to hear you bashing your computer.
I'm not bashing anybody, but I would be concerned for the residents of your town.
Tell us about SBC. Tell us
Yeah.
about Brian Flood. Don't tell
Yeah.
us about others, okay?
Well, sitting here tonight, I wish that we would have been interviewed. I wish that staff would have checked our references. None of that's been done. We sat here tonight and all we listened, you don't want this, you don't want that. You want the residents to pay 20% more this year, 4% increases for the next 6 years. You want your residents to pay more, but your site says fiscal responsibility. You want exceptional service, but you don't check any of our references. That doesn't make any sense to me. The exceptional service is there. The Lakeshore drivers are begging to come work at SBC. We have most of their best drivers. That's the exceptional service that you're not even interviewing about or talking about. This whole meeting today was just pre-rehearsed. It was obvious. That's all. So if you want to do right by your residents, you wouldn't do a pre-rehearsed meeting. You would sit down and say, let's talk to the vendors. Let's check their references. Let's really evaluate this. I've been doing this 45 years, guys. You know what it is. You know exactly what you're doing. But let's do right by the residents. If you really want to do right by the residents, you have the best proposal. You have the best service in front of you. At 20% less for your residents. With all the options, with all the bells and whistles.
Anyone else want to make us feel good about their proposals?
Hesitate slightly with that invitation, but I'm gonna
Give it a shot.
I'm gonna talk Groot anyway. Josh Molnar with Groot Industries. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to staff. Really just the opportunity to participate. We view this as an opportunity. We all 80 plus communities in the area, and a lot of those are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And so For us, we pick and choose where we want to, try to invest our assets and our time and effort. And for us, this was identified as one of those that had a potential for, a long-term agreement. You guys have been with a hauler for a long time, and they did right by it. We respect that. We see that, and that's why we participated. So briefly, all I'll say is, we obviously have a lot of work in the area, Downers Grove Township, Burr Ridge, Woodridge, in the immediate area. But for us, we own our facilities. We don't depend on third-party competitors to negotiate on a year-to-year basis. We just built a $50 million MRF that's state-of-the-art. We'd love to do a tour if you'd ever be interested. Our proposal is the low proposal for option 2 and 3 that includes a senior discount. We found that to be important, especially in a scenario that you guys are in terms of moving away from a sticker. Those are the residents that we want to pay attention to. We want to try to offer a path of least resistance. So we thought it important to offer that senior discount on both of those options. Our proposal also includes the use of trucks powered by compressed natural gas, CNG. We were the first hauler in the area to implement CNG, so that's something we're very proud of. This proposal includes us utilizing that technology in Downers Grove, and it also includes e-waste. We also included e-waste in options 2 and 3. Option 3 included yard waste during the season. It included food scrap compost during the season, and we are very much willing to talk about it year-round as well. So we've included a lot, I think, for a very competitive price. Would love, all I'm asking for is an opportunity to have discussions with staff. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Josh Connell with LRS. I'd like to thank staff, Mayor Barnett, and commissioners. I kind of feel compelled now to come up. We're just looking for an opportunity as well. Similar to Groot, we own all of our own infrastructure. Our recent facility that we just built 2 years ago was just the Facility of the Year by the National Waste and Recycling Association, so we're extremely proud about it. Also with food scrap organics, we currently have 7 communities with year-round food scrap in our organic collection. We started that back in 2016. We're kind of pioneers. It's one of the many firsts that we've brought to the Chicago market. And we've learned a lot from it. And we did include a year-round program as part of our proposal. We probably needed to highlight it a little bit differently because we did say we could do a year-round, but we need some more specifics as to the how it would be rolled out and some of the challenges that we have found. We had some recommendations that we wanted to make with that option 4 recommendation, but it would be a year-round system, okay? It's really hard to turn that off when residents start to use it. And what we have found too, we've got 50% utilization in most of the communities doing it. We've also found that where they've started, so we've got one community that's coming up on a year now. What was 25, 30% is getting close to 50%. So the trend is when you offer that third cart, and with us, it's with an opt-in, meaning we want to deal with residents that want the third cart to use it. If they want it, they get it. It's no additional charge. But it does work, and we're finding that we're winning lots of hearts and minds with the third cart and recycling in general. And so what we're looking for is just an opportunity to tell our story and hopefully have an opportunity to negotiate. There are so many options here, as it was mentioned by one of the commissioners earlier. We'd like to at least discuss some of the thoughts that we had, some of the things that could be kind of maybe fine-tuned a little bit, and we look forward to that opportunity. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Barnett, Village Board, and staff. My name is Tish Powell. I am the Manager of Municipal Sales with Republic Services. And I'm joined here today by my colleague, Tom King. Raise your hand, Tom. Tom is our Finance Director and proud resident of the Village of Downers Grove. I wanted to paraphrase a compliment that we received from one of your residents here a few weeks ago. who said that his driver, Andy, not only does an excellent job picking up his trash, but always waves to his daughter to say hello, and that Andy performs his job in a way that makes him feel like he is part of the community. Republic Services has proudly earned the right to serve as the village's service provider for the past 17 years. And this comment is indicative of what we hear from your residents and from the community organizations that we partner with on a regular basis. That we are not just a service provider, we are part of your community. As you review the proposals and options in front of you, I will point out that Republic Services is the only service provider whose staff identified as being a viable vendor and providing viable service options for all of the program options we proposed. Everything in our column is, in our row is green. I would also like to thank staff for correcting and updating some items that were inadvertently left out of the staff report regarding our proposals that you should have received earlier this afternoon. As a national leader in sustainability, we are confident that each of the proposals that we provided meet or exceed the village's goals for providing outstanding service and furthering your sustainability initiatives. Our proposals provide the village with the greatest amount of flexibility in deciding which services best meet the needs of your community, as well as meeting your environmental goals. I will point out that an option for a 35-gallon trash cart for your low-volume users and a discounted 35-gallon trash cart option for seniors was included in several of our proposed options. Not all of the competitors provided both of those. Also, unlike some of our competitor proposals, we did not include services such as Amnesty Day, electronics pickup, household hazardous waste collection, or unlimited yard waste and organics collection in our base pricing. We provided separate pricing for many of those services so that your residents only pay for the services selected by the village. This is consistent with what your Sustainability Commission said is important, to maintain a pay-as-you-throw program. And I'll point out that that's not just for trash. Pay-as-you-throw applies to your yard waste and organics collection as well. Our programs do not penalize residents who choose to grass cycle and participate in backyard composting at home. The option 4 that you reference quite often from LRS provides a disincentive to those residents who are practicing backyard composting, mulching their grass, and again is inconsistent with what your Environmental Sustainability Commission said is important. We were the only full service provider that provided an option, a detailed option, for year-round, pay-as-you-throw organics collection. So your residents who choose to recycle food scraps with us have the option of opting in after the regular program is over with during the growing season and to a service option that allows them to recycle food scraps during the winter months. I will also point out that our yard waste and organics that are currently collected in this community by Republic Services and under our proposal currently go to a compost facility. There seemed to be some confusion about that only some of the service providers actually compost their yard waste. That was a state law that actually went in place in, I'd say, probably 1990, that banned yard waste from landfills. Our yard waste and organics go to a local compost facility that turns the material into compost. The recycling facility that we partner with in this area is owned by WM. It is one of the most technologically advanced in the country. It was awarded the Recycling Facility of the Year by the National Waste and Recycling Association in 2021 and has optical sorters. This was some of the information that was inadvertently left out of from our proposal that I believe staff updated this afternoon. I also heard feedback from commissioners regarding the desire to recycle bulk items and recycle other things during the amnesty days. I will say this, for anyone who pays attention on your trash day, there's a lot of informal recycling going on in this community and all communities on a regular basis. Whether you're putting out 2 bulk items a week or maintaining your amnesty day, I can guarantee pretty much by the time we get to your house, there is very little scrap metal there for us to pick up. The scrappers get that. If there is a treadmill there that looks like, I think I can take that home and use it, someone has grabbed it. So there's a lot of informal recycling that goes on already and would continue to go on in your community. Over the past few years, when you've held your Amnesty Day, we have worked closely with your staff to try to promote alternative options for your residents to divert usable items to other facilities and organizations in town. And I think that's worked out pretty well. And we would continue to do that. Our Livingston County landfill, which is where the waste that we pick up here in Downers Grove is taken, operates a methane gas recovery facility that provides electricity for 9,000 homes in that area. 9,000 homes. I just wanted to point that out. We also, to support your ongoing sustainability efforts, we included an option, or actually not an option, we pledged to provide $5,000 a year towards the village's sustainability efforts. That's our ongoing commitment to sustainability in your community. We are a leading provider. We are leading the nation in sustainability. I believe I sent each of you a copy of our most recent sustainability report, and for those of you listening at home, you can download it yourself from our website at republicservices.com. But a couple things I'll highlight from that report. We reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 20% since 2017. Our goal is 35% by 2030, and we're well on our way of achieving that. Republic Services is leading the industry in fleet electrification, with more than 50 electric collection vehicles now operating across North America. And we just recently launched electric vehicles right here in Chicago. So it's not something we're just talking about in this area, it's something that is actually happening in this area. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover, but I did want to end by saying we appreciate the relationship that we have had and would like to continue to have with the village. We ask for an opportunity to continue to engage in contract negotiations with the village. We are here. We have all of the collection vehicles, carts, staff that would avoid any type of transition, which I know is a concern. But more importantly, we can provide the sustainability initiatives that you have identified as being important to this community. And we can provide them in a way that looks out for your seniors and provides them with options, that provides your low volume users with options, and are not just bundled in and make other people who may have landscaping services or who may be composting and mulching at home pay for something that they're not going to use. You're going to get pushback on that. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your discussion.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to skip the mayor's report, which is coming up in a little bit, and just touch on something here. Our residents are here, some of them tonight, others watching this meeting, and I think it's important. Your village council is, I think it should be pretty obvious, getting into a lot of details and trying to understand what all of our options are to best serve what we think is our entire community. And that means a lot of different opinions about what's most valuable, what's most important. And there are 18,000, 20,000 households, 20,000 residences, something like that. And they all have slightly different versions. About the last damn thing that's going on up here is some sort of rehearsed meeting.
Yes.
That is just, I don't know how to say it other than it's offensive. We service, environmental impacts, costs, you heard all of those things discussed. You saw various people involved in this decision-making process that had lots of questions about those as they tried to understand them more, and some pretty clear descriptions of what was valuable. And when we are working on this for 16 years with one vendor, and then we go out with a bunch of RFPs and try and understand what the world looks like today and what options and opportunities might be available to us, that is nothing but sincere, honest effort on behalf of all of our residents. That's it. If you've got a different opinion of it, you're wrong. We are going to continue this conversation. We're going to try to end up at a spot that we think meets all of our residents' needs, as well as the goals that we've identified as a community over the last 18 months, which are a big deal and important to all of our residents. And we're going to do it in the exact same way you've seen tonight, an open discussion where we talk back and forth, we get questions answered, and we try and understand each other's values and find a spot where we can all agree. I hope we do that with a bunch of qualified people who want to work with us. If that's not how you feel, that's okay too. We'll find something to do. Dave, do you have a manager's report tonight?
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Is there an attorney's report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. 3 items to present tonight. The first is an ordinance annexing 139th Street to the village, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to designate the property at 139th Street as Plan Unit Development Number 72, and an ordinance rezoning certain property located at 139th. All 3 will be on next week's active agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Enza. Council member reports. Opportunity for council members to report out on goings on in the community, other organizations they may be working with, things that they think are important for our residents to hear about. We'll start in the cloud. What do you got, Leslie?
I just want to thank everyone who supported the Grove Foundation golf outing. It was a huge success. We don't have our final numbers, but I'm pretty sure that we blew all previous years out of the water. And it looks like we're definitely going to hit a record. So to TBD, but it was a really wonderful event. It was a beautiful day. And again, just thank you to everybody who supported the event. That is all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. There are just 289 days left until the 2026 Rotary Growth Fest, which I know you're all counting with every bated breath. Thank you.
We're not counting because we're counting on you. Mike?
Challenge accepted.
I think District 58's Oktoberfest is coming up this weekend, so I encourage everyone to attend and support that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rob.
This week, we had a resident reach out regarding an issue with our emergency services, our tornado sirens. Turns out we had a malfunction, and had that resident not reached out to us, you may not have known. So just a reminder, you see something, say something. You always hear on Metro, right? So thank you.
Thank you. Tammy?
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Chris?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, I'm done talking for the night. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport,
Aye.
Commissioner Rowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarver,
Aye.
Commissioner Tully,
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski Fugit,
Aye.
Mayor Barnett.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all and have a good night.